Hey everyone, welcome to the Dark Frontier ECQ. I'm Luis Scott Vargas here with Andrew Beckstrom, and we had a little issue launching the stream the first time, so we're going to get pretty much right into the action. The players today are playing for the top two players are going to make it to Worlds. So our last two slots at Worlds given out through ECQs. This is the final ECQ. They're playing ranked, best 2 out of 3 games, 64 players, single elimination. So these players, the field will have in size each round, and we've got the players already started, so we're going to head right on down to watch Yottabyte battle in the first round. Alrighty, welcome to round 1 of the top 64. Oh wow, I look much better than normal.
I don't like how I look either.
Yeah.
So we've got Yottabyte here playing his Elysian Overwhelm Divining Rod deck versus Dark Revenger on FTP Genève mid-range. And we see a pair of giant units already down for Dark Revenger. A Surso, which is immediately getting equivocated, and a Sandstorm Titan.
So one of the keys in this matchup is that Equivocate really needs to hit Surso, because Surso's otherwise pretty much unbeatable in combat, and Xenon Initiation doesn't even work because the killer unit is attacking Surso. So you predicted that we're going to see both these players heavily sandbag Equivocates, and so far that seems to be accurate. Dark Revenger's got one for Yottabyte Surso, and Yottabyte chose to chump Sandstorm Titan and not equivocate it, waiting to hit a Surso. One
thing to note is Yottabyte's actually led off the game with a pair of Shepherd's Horns, so all of the Overwhelm units that they have are going to cost 2 less, and every time they play one, they're going to gain 6 health, 3 from each Shepherd's Horn. So it's going to be really hard for Dark Revenger to close out this game. They're going to have to really grind through everything that Yottabyte's got coming.
So right, so even if you see Dark Revenger looking a little bit ahead on board, Yottabyte is gonna be able to just gain enough health that it just really is difficult for Dark Revenger to finish them off. Also, doing something like this, attacking Dawnwalker into Sandstorm Titan in order to get it back and gain another 6 health.
So we see jumping up all the way up to 42. Finally, end of turn, we're gonna see an Equivocate on Surso. What's the hit? A Temple Artisan. All right.
And funnily enough, the Shepherd's Horn actually does make it so Surso gives Yottabyte worse hits.
The cost reduction plays against Yottabyte for the purposes of Equivocate. Yeah, that's funny. For Dark Revenger's side, solid hand right now. They've got some card selection in the form of the Merchant and the Strategize. They've got another power to play. Nothing too explosive to close out the game. We'll see what options they have for this Aurelian Merchant right now.
They were able to take out one Shepherd's Horde thanks to Caleb's choice there, but there's still another one kind of getting work done. Or it looks like, oh, were they able to take out both, it looks like?
Looks that way.
Yeah. Which...
I may have been mistaken earlier about there being 2 Shepherd's Horns in play. It's hard to see quite with this Observer mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, no more Shepherd's Horns for Yottabyte, so now they're actually going to have to pay full upfront costs for all of their Overwhelm units. They've got 2 in play right now, and they've got an Aurelian Merchant, and so they could just go for Divining Rod tucked inside their market. They'll start off the turn by just crashing in with their Surso, though. The Sandstorm Titan's got no profitable block there, of course.
And at this point, Dark Revenger, one of their best outs is probably to play another Howling Peak Smuggler, and then at that point, Display of Instinct can actually take out Surso.
So thanks to Howling Peak Smuggler, Dark Revenger's got 9 points of damage in hand between the Display of Instinct and the Torch. But unfortunately, they'd have to fire both off directly at the Surso if they want to get there. Oh, one alternative line is a second Howling Peak Smuggler from their hand would get that Display of Instinct up to 6 damage, cleanly finishing off Surso. I think right now Dark Revenger, if I had to guess, is thinking about what exactly they want to put in and take out from their market.
Yeah, picking up a Zalchi instead of a Torch seems like a pretty good deal to me. Or potentially Molat and Nakova, because that Aurelian Merchant can get Zalchi, can't get Molat and Nakova, unfortunately.
Not enough for Yottabyte to block even with that Dawnwalker. So it takes another 5, dropping them down to 30. Now we see the Howling Peak Smuggler boosting the spell damage up another notch.
And gonna likely pull something gigantic out of their market here. They have access to a couple big ones, and oh wow, they're just getting the Praxis Banner. Just switching Aurelian Merchant for Praxis Banner that's showing a pretty conservative line there.
Yeah, they don't have any action left, and with Yottabyte still at 30, that means this game's gonna go on for a little bit longer now.
Well, so the reason Dark Revenger, I think, went so aggressively after both of Yottabyte's units is because they thought Yottabyte went and fetched a Divining Rod from their market. As it turns out, Yottabyte didn't, and that played right into Yottabyte's hands. Because now Yottabyte can play Psychology, get back the Dawnwalker, use Equivocate on that Sandstorm Titan, get a big hit in, and all of a sudden be pressuring Dark Revenger, who at this point has given up a lot of their action in order to remove those overwhelm units from the board.
That's the gamesmanship that you can see when players have open deck lists. There's that leveling of thinking, I know what you got, and it turns out sometimes you're just wrong. Genev Merchant off the top from Dark Revenger. Going to put this Bandit Queen away. A pretty nice looking unit most of the time, but with the Yottabyte at 30, that's not doing a ton besides being a 3-2. Grabs the Zalchi out of the market.
And Yottabyte, I think, is well aware that something like Zalchi or Mullet Nikova is coming. Likely guessing Zalchi thanks to Dark Revenger being on 7 power. So I think Yoda has a pretty big incentive to hold on to that Equivocate and wait to use it next turn.
And they rightfully scouted it to the top, knowing how key it is against how many of Dark Revenger's best cards in the matchup. So we see an Overwhelm attack for 9 coming in between the Sakalis and the Dawnwalker. Initiative the Sands is going to get in as well. So they're going to have to do some blocks here. We see a double block on the Sakalis just to soak up some damage. And we see a single block on the Dawnwalker as the proposed block so far. Rethinking it, they're going to let the Dawnwalker come in and just try to eat that Initiative the Sands.
And still take 5 points for their troubles. Though the saving grace for Dark Revenger is that Yottabyte is not playing Fire, so you're not going to get Torched or Display of Instinct in out of nowhere.
Dark Revenger drops down to 3. Fortunately, Yottabyte not playing a Torch deck, so that their health total will be safe outside of combat.
So now Dark Revenger, the rare defensive Zalchi, given that Yottabyte's at 30 and Dark Revenger's at 3. Still going to get hit by Equivocate, though Yottabyte has the opportunity to attack with the Dawnwalker, and then if Dark Revenger doesn't double block, Dark Revenger sees through that plan.
Super savvy double block, keeping themselves still in this game. So now this is a really big role in this Equivocate for Dark Revenger, and it is a Brel Solus Apostate. What a hit. Comes down, creates a 4-4 Brel's Mallet with Warcry 2, finishes off the Aurelian Merchant, and Yottabyte's just out of gas.
Wow. So Yottabyte has some breathing room at 30, but at this point, without any units in play, is taking 8 a turn, and Dark Revenger is Warcrying multiple times every single turn. So the next unit that Dark Revenger draws is going to be enormous.
Right now, we're looking at +6/+6 from 2 attacks from the Mallet and an attack from Brel. Though you could see potentially Brel sit back fearing a Sakalis.
Well, we'll see. It looks like
Dark Revenger makes exactly that play. Unfortunately, Yottabyte just not coming up with anything right now, and a giant Sandstorm Titan. Ooh, I don't know what Yottabyte can do from this spot.
Well, they do have Dawnwalker, so the first unit they hit does double count. Like if the Yottabyte just draws a Circe or something here, yeah, even a World Bearer Behemoth, that gives them a pretty good shot.
One trick that you'll see a player like Yottabyte make in a spot like this is use Xenon Initiation to attack a small unit with a giant Overwhelm unit to finish them off. Heart of the Vault on top. It's humongous right now. Dark Revenger thinking, do they want to Warcry and get that Heart of the Vault even bigger before they warp it in?
They also might be deciding where they want to point the 2 damage from the Heart of the Vault. They're just going to end up taking out Dawnwalker, drawing Howling Peak Smuggler, which can go ahead and get Molat and Nikova. So this puts Yottabyte into a pretty tenuous position. I think that Yoda at this point that needs something like that Xenon Initiation.
Super risky to play the Howling Peak Smuggler. It means it's lethal if Yottabyte were to come up with a Xenon Initiation, so they don't even play it.
And Yottabyte didn't draw that Xenon Initiation. Crest is not going to do it, and Yottabyte, despite getting Dark Revenger down to 1, was not able to close out that game.
Yeah, Equivocate absolutely tremendous at being able to get problematic units into anything else for this giant Elysian Overwhelm deck. But it turns out that this time Equivocate really bit Yottabyte.
Well, when you're equivocating a 7-drop, there's a pretty big range of good hits, especially in a game like that both players had tons of power, had enough time to replay their unit. So you knew that Dark Revenger was going to get a chance to play that 7, and I would say, without looking at a list, like half the 7s have a pretty good effect on the game, and even the other half, you're still going to get like a 4-4 or something like that.
And I kind of wonder, was it right for Yottabyte to go for it there in that moment with the Equivocate on the Zalchi? Would it have been better to try to get another unit or 2 into play and wait till you could be assured that something was single blocked?
Yeah, that's a good question. Surprisingly
Fortunately
good.
for them, they just drew mono power for the rest of the game,
Yeah.
so it wasn't going to matter either way. But they've still got another crack at it. That was just game 1, and I think we're just about ready to head down for game 2 of this match.
Alrighty. Alrighty, welcome to game 2 here. Yottabyte down a game with their Divining Rod deck, but ooh, looking at a pretty nice opening hand, a much faster, and this is one of the advantages of playing just Illion, no splashes, getting to go turn 1 Initiate, turn 2 Trailmaker, turn 3 Surso, which looks like even though Dark Revenger's got that Hailstorm, Surso is going to be able to hit the board before Hailstorm comes out.
Yeah. And Yottabyte was really praying there that Fate Echo animation they saw from the Find the Way wasn't a Jotun Hurler, because there are 4 in Dark Revenger's deck. Fortunately, it was the exact singleton Find the Way.
And I think that at this point, Yottabyte could probably figure that out, given that the Initiate is still in play.
Absolutely. We see a Find the Way, going to continue setting up the power. And Yottabyte's going to need this Surso to do a lot of work, because this Hailstorm's going to clean things up pretty nicely next turn from the Initiative to stand. Oh, it was an Irwin Merchant.
Yeah, the Irwin Merchant does give Yottabyte a little bit more resilience to Hailstorm. And here you see Mokotni Restored, one of the recent promo cards. 8 cost 7/7, but it's got Overwhelm, so it can be hit off the Divining Rod. And you know, once this hits the board, it actually is really difficult for opposing decks to deal with it. If it dies, you end up drawing a bunch of cards, and that ends up giving you enough resources to continue displaying threats.
It's a nice payoff for having so many power generating units in Yottabyte's deck and Trailmaker, Irwin Merchant, and Issue the Sands. It means they're going to empty out and then be able to fill right up with that Moknati. So we see a Surso coming in for 6. No good blocks. Dark Revenger drops down to 17, and a Trailmaker is the follow. Will we see a Xena initiation? No, just a passing of the turn.
And at this point, Dark Revenger could Hailstorm for 4, thanks to the Smuggler, which would actually take out the Irwin Merchant. Smuggler would also get taken out, but
Yottabyte would have the option right now, if they want to equivocate the Howling Peak Smuggler, it'll reduce the Hailstorm down to only dealing 3, keeping the Merchant alive. Critical decision here.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to drop Yottabyte's power supply from 6 down to 3, so it seems like a prudent play, and that gives Dark Revenger a Refracted Sentinel, which a bit risky against someone who's got such a high curve.
And that was a painful play by Yottabyte, because as we see this Surso likely coming down this turn, they don't have the Equivocate anymore for it.
And as we discussed before, Xenon Initiation, not a good way to deal with Surso. The 2 Sursos can trade. Just attacking Surso does give you that option. Oh no.
Well, this is painful, but they feel like they had to do it. They can keep getting in with the Dawnwalker now that the Surso's off the board.
I guess that trade gets an extra 4 points of damage in, but you do have to give up a Xenon Initiation to do so.
So for Dark Revenger, they could play that Refracted Sentinel this turn. If you're not familiar with it, it'll let Yottabyte play a power from their deck depleted, and that doesn't look too appealing with Yottabyte stuck on 4 at the moment.
No. And notice that Dark Revenger did not have an undepleted power to play one of those Hearts of the Vault. So, you know, these Firetime Primal decks, the Heart of the Vault, extremely powerful card, doesn't come out on like clockwork on turn 6. It's often a play that's a little bit later.
Yottabyte drawing another Dawnwalker off the top. Going to give them some staying power once these Heart of the Vaults start picking off Dawnwalkers in a few turns.
And Yottabyte could have gone for lethal, but if they had 1 more power, because with Dawnwalker as the initiation, as is, they're going to have to settle for just playing another Dawnwalker. Still, once you have your opponent down to 5 and you've got 2 Dawnwalkers in play, it puts them on a pretty big clock, because any large unit from Yottabyte's side of the board brings back all those Dawnwalkers.
Sandstorm Titan is the scout for Dark Revenger.
I guess Yottabyte actually does need a 4th time influence here. Actually, a lot of the power that Yottabyte has, is not providing both time and primal.
Yeah, Yottabyte's definitely all right. Well, that's a start. The 5th power and the 4th time sigil opens up a lot of possible great top decks for Yottabyte now.
But at this point, we're going to see the lack of cards come up to bite Yottabyte, and right now, Dark Revenger has tons more cards in hand. Is about to have potentially a second 6/6 and a 5/6 on the board, which gives Yottabyte maybe just a turn before having to play something to defend themselves.
The recently nerfed Jotun Hurler making his first appearance in the tournament. A Shepherd's Horn off the top, not what Yottabyte was hoping to see. Reduces the Moknati, still 2 power away.
Yeah, and at this point, Dark Revenger can attack with everything. If Yottabyte doesn't chump, that's going to be lethal. So Dark Prince going to kick things off with Caleb's choice on the Shepherd's Horn.
And Yottabyte just packing it in, doesn't see a way out, and Dark Revenger advances to the round of 32. A 2-0 win.
Yeah, the Divining Rod, a sweet deck. Unfortunately, drawing the Mokotni instead of drawing a Divining Rod or a different large overall unit. That's kind of the cost you pay for putting 8 drops in your deck, especially when your power sources get attacked. But still a good top 64 finish for Yottabyte. Just making it to Sunday is an accomplishment. We're going to be looking for other games here since we've got plenty of players still battling. So we'll hop in and take a look at a game as soon as we find one. And it looks like we've got ourselves a game. So let's head down to the game and continue our coverage. Alrighty, welcome to round 1 here. We've got Tangelos against Zum-Zum. Zum-Zum on looks like Haunted Highway, one of the more aggressive Haunting Scream decks. Facing off against another Firetime Primal deck with Howling Peaks mobilized into action here.
Another Howling Peak stuck in hand, and then 2 Heart of the Vaults that are 2 time influences away. So it's definitely a head on board for Tangelos at the moment, but they're going to have some time for Zum-Zum to try to catch up here.
And Zum-Zum also kind of out of gas here. You just saw Torch plus Annihilate taking down the Genève Merchant in order to prevent Tangelos from using Mirror Image, perhaps. Here, Tangelos with a Howling Peak Smuggler. And Firetime Primal just always has so many cards in their hand.
It really feels that way. Between the amount of Fate and Echo with all of the Smugglers, they do such an efficient job of keeping the card flow going. Torrential Downpour coming out of the market for Tangelos, but I think we might see them wait on this. They know that a Granite Waystone got played, and a Granite did not get played last turn from Zum-Zum. And Zum-Zum drawing Annihilate can't kill the Howling Peak Smuggler. They're just going to have to pass, and this is painful. Zum-Zum's going to have to watch as Tangelos gets to dig into the market once again as they mirror image their Howling Peak Smuggler. Now all spells deal +2 damage. They get to grab a Caleb's Choice, and that's just such a nice feeling to be in, is when you have all this power, you feel like you're head on board, and you have a Caleb's Choice to prevent any of the shenanigans that Haunted Highway likes to get up to, where they combine multiple spells at a turn.
Yeah, and Zum-Zum drawing a Champion of Fury does give them a charge unit to attack that Howling Peak with, but those Smugglers are just going to get in the way. And
the health boost to the Howling Peak Smuggler from the Howling Peak does a nice job of preventing the Champion of Fury for overwhelming for anything there.
Caleb Reborn coming, kind of hits the battlefield here, and that's going to leave Tangelos in a dominating position, as if they weren't already. I mean, at this point, they're up millions of cards, and even with these uncastable Hearts of the Vault, I think they have enough action to pull through. And if they draw power, they can eventually cast those Heart of the Vaults.
And I like the way that Tangelos is playing it. They're just going to try to take this nice and easy. They understand that the worst thing they could do in a spot like this is to expose themselves to some combination of Madness, Combust, and Haunting Scream, creating a giant attack where they're getting destroyed by their own units out of nowhere. So a Krennin Merchant comes off the top, grabs the Combust. They'll get to sack the Crunch the Hoarder that have been permafrosted, taking down the Caleb's, except Display of Instinct says, no, no, no. And what is the mode on it? It was counter the negate of the Combust. So finally a Time Sigil comes off the top, getting us a little bit closer to Heart of the Vault, and a Torrential Downpour is going to wipe the board here.
I don't think Heart of the Vault's going to actually hit this game because I think that Caleb plus the Howling Peak Smugglers gonna close things out fast enough, especially since Tangelos could also just play another Howling Peak if they so desired.
Yeah, instead they elect to leave up Caleb's Choice, a very move befitting the Caleb that's in play. Another Krennin Merchant off the top. I just wonder, do they have any appealing options? Vicious Highwayman not doing much. Haunting Scream.
Haunting Scream to get Crunch could get some action.
Yeah, it draws you some cards. And that's what they're going to go for.
Crunch comes back in. It already has Berserk here, so getting to hit for 6 and draw a pair of cards for Zum-Zum. So this is the play that Zum-Zum needed to get back into the game.
And critically, because Haunting Scream and Crunch are both mono-faction, or both multi-faction, the Caleb's Choice had nothing to say about that.
Shakedown and Stone Scar Banner are not really the draws that Zum-Zum was looking for. They need something a little bit more high impact, but there is a chance here. It looks like Caleb's Choice is going to counter that Shakedown, since otherwise they're just going to take the Caleb's Choice. And
Critically, it stops Nightfall.
Yeah.
And I think if you're Tangelos, you're very happy about that. You've got plenty of cards. Zum-Zum's got few. Having both players draw 2 definitely favors Zum-Zum.
Looks like I was wrong, and Heart of the Vault will, in fact, hit the board. Tangelos is going to use that to take out that Carradine Merchant and basically wrap up this game. Zum-Zum is facing down 3 gigantic threats, or at least 2 gigantic threats and a Smuggler with more to come.
A Grenin drone is going to provide 2 chump blockers, but I don't know where that's getting them. And a torch off the top should prove to be the finishing blow here. Tangelos going through, making sure they're not exposing themselves by just hitting a space here. They like what they see. They're going to go in.
And historically, Haunted Highway has been one of the decks you want to leave the most blockers against just because of how dangerous it can be with Madness, Haunting, Scream turns. But in this particular case, Tangelos had it covered, and Tangelos advances to the top 32, Zum-Zum out in the top 64.
So we've watched 2 matches so far, and we've seen Genève Peaks win both of them. I don't know.
I guess that deck hasn't peaked yet. But both those pilots are advancing to the top 32. Those are fast though, so we get more games. Part of the goals of these broadcasts is to have as much Eternal the entire time. So when we're not in a match, we're looking for other matches, and we've got another one here. So let's head on down and keep the commentary train rolling. All right, welcome to Game 3 here. Minor Pentatonic playing Praxis, kind of the deck of the tournament, against Enroush 1 playing Ambition here, Fire Shadow Justice, and Enroush, came very close to qualifying in an earlier ECQ. Unfortunately, it looks like this one they might have a slightly harder time of it, given that Purify just took out their Champion of Chaos and they're getting attacked by the Pledge All-Stars and Amaranth Stinger as well.
So, and we see Enroush is just going to fall there. Unfortunately, Minor Pentatonic defeats Enroush, for Enroush's sake anyway. For Minor Pentatonic's sake, congratulations.
What is this biased Enroush, pro Enroush commentary?
I like Enroush's stream. They've got a good stream. Maybe Minor Pentatonic will have a good stream someday, but I haven't checked it out yet.
Well, they just settled it on the field of combat.
They did settle on the field. I liked Enroush's deck. Unfortunately, they didn't win. They did something cool with their deck. You'll be able to check out their deck lists if you go on Reddit. They're up there right now.
Didn't look that impressive.
They're playing with Champion of...
We just saw them just take lethal with little opposition.
Well, they're playing with 4 Champion of Chaos in their Wind Chest deck, and that was exciting to see. It wasn't as exciting to see it immediately get purified and killed before they lost the game.
Yeah, I was curious what about that you found to be particularly exciting.
Well, our producer Michael Jacob is looking for another match. Looks like he got a chance to tune in and watch.
Are you trying to leave this conversation? Is that what's happening?
You got to tune in and watch the Heart of the Vaults come looking off.
All right, let's get this professional broadcast back on track. Welcome to our top 64. We're watching T-Chamber 5 up a game with Praxis here facing off against JSR1. Also on Praxis using some of the recently buffed cards, like Flame Blast, for example. And it looks like Jasser is gonna be in good position to send in lethal here. They're leaving that Glass Hopper back though, just in case.
Yeah, they have their pick of the ways to finish off the game. Going for the alpha attack as opposed to the Flame Blast to the face. Who can blame them? And I'm going to confirm with our producer that was Game 2. So I believe we're going to have a Game 3 of that matchup. And
yeah,
so we're getting our first little taste of the Praxis Pledge deck in action.
Yeah, this is gonna be our first full game watching the Praxis Pledge deck at work, and it's something that that, again, players in this tournament, in this top 64 particularly, likely either have a good matchup against Praxis Pledge or think they do. It's really hard to justify playing a deck if you don't think that matchup favors you. So we'll see who's right at the end of the day. We've got a lot of players on Praxis Pledge and a lot of players trying to beat Praxis Pledge. That's going to be the kind of the storyline of the tournament here.
Yeah, as far as what I've seen from the deck, it looks great, assuming that you can get off to a good fast start. Some of the cards in the deck work so much better when you're on the play and when you're rolling. Teacher of Humility, Amaranth Stinger are 2 of the most notable ones.
Yeah.
Tangelos does a great job of applying some mid-game reach, so to speak. But when those cards come rolling off the top and you haven't dealt any damage to your opponent in the game, that's when things get a little dicey.
Right. You really need them to be forced to between a rock and a hard place when you're attacking with an indestructible, invulnerable to damage Tangelos. When they're at 27 and they just take 5 and then you have a 5-2 in play, that's a lot less impressive.
And okay, so it sounds like we're ready for Game 3 of that match, so we're going to head on down.
Alrighty, welcome to Game 3, T-Chamber 5 against Jess 1 and T-Chamber 5 on the play here, and looks like they are going to lead with Initiate of the Sands, and they've got that turn 2 Amaranth Stinger. That's exactly where you want to be.
Just crushing if you're on Jacer's side, because they've got the turn 2 Teacher on the draw, which would block that turn 3 Amaranth Stinger, but not doing anything against the turn 2 Amaranth Stinger. Going to put 5 Scorpion Traps into the top 20 cards of Jacer's deck. And when they draw him, a 1/1 Deadly Scorpion will go into play on T-Chamber's side.
And that's got to stay.
Okay.
Well, so it's just a 1/1 Deadly for nothing.
So the choice for Jacer on this turn 2, do you deploy this T-Chamber Melody, which isn't looking like it's doing a ton against the 2/4 besides blocking it, or do you just throw out a Fire Sigil and torch that Initiate of the Sands? The Torch is going to lose a lot of its luster once T-Chamber gets up and is just playing with mono big units in the mid-game.
Yeah. Now is a good time to cut your opponent off of extra power, though if we look at T-Chamber's hand, what we know, and what Jesser doesn't, is that T-Chamber actually can't use the extra power all that well. It does let them play an Aurelian Merchant, though, so this will still accomplish something.
And you've got to be scared about a second Amaranth Stinger if you're Jacer. Fortunately, T-Chamber doesn't have it. Just going to be playing it an Aurelian Merchant this turn. Digging into the market for, I would guess, a Xenon Obelisk or potentially a Praxis Banner, since none of the power is undepleted in their hand, so they can't, as it stands, play a Moonstone Vanguard next turn. But they'll just settle for an Obelisk and set up with the Moonstone Vanguard down the line.
Yeah, I like getting the Obelisk because if you draw a 5th power, then you can play the Moonstone Vanguard. If you don't, you can draw Obelisk. But if you get Praxis Banner and then draw another power, you're just, at this point, have way too much power.
And it's playing really nicely into the Scorpion equity that they have right now, because Scorpions are coming at some point. Not next turn, because we see a Heart of the Vault on top of the deck for Jacer, but they're coming.
Ooh, this is the exact position where Psycholis is interesting.
So we see the Xenon Obelisk come down. Interesting alpha attack by T-Chamber. They're only getting in for 1 point of damage, and they're exposing themselves to an Amaranth Stinger counterattack. Unfortunately for Jacer, they don't have an Amaranth Stinger.
Sandstorm Titan coming down for Jacer, which is actually going to do a pretty good job defending things, though the Xenon Obelisk does let Psycholis attack past Sandstorm Titan if that's what T-Chamber 5 is looking for. It might just be better also just to drop Moonstone Vanguard and kind of threaten to draw that extra card the turn after.
So we haven't mentioned the one sort of weird card in T-Chamber's hand. Some of the players in the field have, and I know this is an innovation from Sunnyvale's Friends of Eternal team, is Talir's Intervention. It's a modal spell. You get to use it to either gain health, bounce an Explorer Sentinel of your own to your hand, or silence a unit at fast speed. And it's really cool against things like Saturated Main and Surso. In this matchup, how is T-Chamber going to find a good utility spot for it?
Yeah, well, we will find out. It's the sort of thing that can interact in combat nicely. You could also even do something like attack with the Moonstone Vanguard to get a card and then bounce it back to your hand if you really need to.
Another Psycholis comes down for T-Chamber, and 6/3 Overwhelm. Invulnerable to damage this turn is just going to come right on in. No chump blocks for Jacer, and the first of the Scorpion Traps comes off the top.
Gunrunner here for Jacer, and they did pledge on turn 1 a Daria Warrior Poet, so Gunrunner is going to go ahead and make a 3/1 Relic Weapon.
Wow, look at this play. Talir's Intervention, silencing the Gunrunner. That Relic Weapon just lost Quick Draw, so it trades with the Scorpion.
Yeah, that was a pretty big swing there. And, oh man, T-Chamber with a Gunrunner of their own here.
It's going to make it really hard to block these 6/6s and 6/3s once this Gunrunner comes down.
Well, technically they can still easily block them, but not effectively. Gunrunner does make that Clandestine Shotgun, gives everything quick draw, and this really does give T-Chamber the initiative here. 6/6 and 6/3 both coming in.
This is a lethal attack.
Yeah, Jesser is obliged to block somewhere here, and currently can't even take out the 6/6 Moonstone Vanguard because Quick Draw can let T-Chamber take out whatever blocks it. So double blocks on Psycholis will take Psycholis out, however.
And critically, because of that, Xenon Obelisk can play for T-Chamber. If you're on Jacer's side, ordinarily a Heart of the Vault does a great job of just eating a Gunrunner, but it's 5/3 now because of Xenon Obelisk. So even if a Fire Sigil comes off the top, or a Praxis Banner, not going to do the job of killing that Gunrunner. Still, maybe start of a comeback here. We'll see what the Heart of the Vault reveals off the top.
Another Scorpion Trap.
Fortunately, no Scorpion Trap. Unfortunately, just a Fire Sigil.
Psycholoss, the Burning Sand, is going to give T-Chamber another good attacker. And actually, Glasshopper coming down, picking up that Daria, but then making Psycholoss cheaper, letting T-Chamber play it. And T-Chamber at this point can just attack again. And note that T-Chamber is also just getting material, drawing multiple cards off Moonstone Vanguard. And so even if Jesser is able to stabilize here, it's going to be down plenty of cards.
And that Daria coming down next turn is absolutely brutal in combination with Gunrider. You get to set up where you have a quick draw, deadly, berserking unit. There is just no way to block something like that.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, that's one of the strengths of the Praxis deck is you get into the mid game, both players have a bunch of units, and you have a lot of ways to break that symmetry.
So we see some chump blocks here. It looks like 3 units on the Moonstone Vanguard will take it down. Psycholoss will overwhelm for 2 as the Aurelian Merchant chumps it. T-Chamber just passes back down. Jacer picks up a Moonstone Vanguard, which could do something since its block will gain some health for Jacer. And they'll go for that instead of trying to high roll with the Heart of the Vault.
Yeah, the extra 5 health off the Moonstone Vanguard looks like it might keep T-Chamber alive, but again, that Daria Warrior Poet is just going to make things so difficult for Jesser here.
Another Glasshopper comes down, once again drawing a Daria that was pledged at the beginning of the game. Reducing them down to 2, so now critically, T-Chamber still has enough power to play one of those 2 Darias and amplify it once. We'll see where they share the love. It's going to go on to our friends Palace, and yeah, absolutely. Berserk Deadly, quick draw, overwhelm means GG. Congrats to T-Chamber on advancing to the top 32.
Yeah, so T-Chamber defeats the, Jesser in the Praxis Mirror and advances to top 32. Taking a look, looks like we may have another match or 2 still going here. So we'll be able to jump in. We get one last match here before we advance to our top 32. So let's head on down. Looks like we've got ourselves a match. Or not. In fact, it looks like those players just finished, and another player. We've decided another top 32 berth here. Let's look just to see if we've got anything else going on. All right, it looks like all the matches are finished, but we did want to talk about, a spoiler. Well, we've got a lot of spoilers here today. Dark Frontier, the next Eternal expansion, is coming out this Thursday, but we want to talk about a card. We've actually already revealed this card, but let's take a look at it anyway. This is Kira, and Andrew, tell us a little bit about Kira the Prodigy, and where did this card come from?
Yeah, Kira is unlike any other card in the game in that it was designed not by somebody at Direwolf Digital, but it was actually designed by a member of the community. This was the card that Yottabyte, the player that we watched to kick off the day, submitted when they were able to win the Create Your Own Card achievement in our community influence store. And they did a really cool way of actually coming up with the design for this card. They got all of the subs and followers of their channel to submit designs, and then they ran a bracket of their favorite card designs, had the community vote on it, and this is what they came up with, which is a really cool looking Unseen 2-drop. So Kira, 2 cost, 2/2. Not bad stats to start, but what an ability. When Kira gets strength, health, or battle skills for the turn, she keeps them. So Luis, how do you use a card like this?
So the level 1 place to start is cards like Finest Hour or Rapid Shot. Like for example, you Rapid Shot Kira, she becomes a 6/2 quick draw. End of the turn, she just remains a 6/2 quick draw. You also, you have cards like Accelerated Evolution, which, that actually doesn't actually, she retains those either way. But you basically want to get a deck that's got a lot of different pump spells, a lot of different ways to add battle skills, and a lot of different cards that kind of help that. It's the sort of thing she might fit nicely into a deck like with Hojon, another aggressive Justice 2-drop. We're going to see how the community ends up using her once she's released, because she is just a part of set 6. She's a part of Dark Frontier.
Yeah, that's the really exciting thing is we were able to get this card, and it's going to be released on Thursday. And when it comes out, you'll be able to craft it or open it in booster packs, play with it in draft, play with it in sealed league. And we're really excited to see what combinations people could come up with this card, because I know that once we started working on the card, we were just having so much fun looking through the collection, finding out all the cool combinations. And I will tease that there is a pretty exciting card for Kira that we'll be revealing later today.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We've got a lot more Dark Frontier spoilers and a couple other announcements coming today. Plus, of course, tons of Eternal action. We just saw 4 matches. Plus, we almost saw a 5th, but they concluded a little too quickly. The players looks like they are just wrapping up the last game of the round here. So we will be back, after taking a short break here. We'll be back with our top 32 action. And we've actually even got additional commentary here. We've got Patrick Chapin in the house, so we'll be rotating commentary pairs up through the course of the day. And we will see you back here in just a couple minutes. Welcome back to the Eternal Championship Qualifier. I'm Scott Vargas here with Patrick Chapin. We luckily we picked up a Chapin, so we're going to be doing our.
It's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, we're doing our broadcast here. We've got myself, Andrew Beckstrom, Patrick Chapin for today. For our top 32 here, it's going to be myself and Patrick. And we're just a reminder, we are playing single elimination today, so best 2 out of 3. But each time you lose a match, that is the last match you were playing for the day, and these players are vying for 2 slots at the World Championship. The last 2 we're giving out via the ECQs, though we've got a couple tournaments left over this last month and a half here. Before we get to that, we've got something we want to talk about here. We've got Raiders of the North Sea. So what this is a worker placement game. It's already a board game, and we are adapting it here to digital. So it's coming to both Switch, mobile, and Steam. It's a digital port of the existing board game. And it's also going to be available for online multiplayer, AI games, so you can play solitary if you'd like, and campaign games with unique challenges. This is a partnership with Renegade Games and Garfield Game Studios. So it's always cool being able to adjust or adapt physical games into the digital realm, since often we kind of go the other direction. You know, we work on a lot of digital games here, but this is kind of going the other way and giving you a new place that you can play a sweet game.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm loving seeing the new games coming out one after another, man.
Yeah, and you know, it's cool being able to work in just different mediums, and you know, having Raiders of the North Sea be able to be something that you get to play online now, as opposed to just playing in paper or physically. It gives you basically a cool new way to kind of play the game. Also, it unlocks new modes that you wouldn't have been able to play before, like AI mode. So it's not something. It's a little hard to do that one in paper. I'm sure someone could manage, but so we're looking forward to that release as well. Patrick, tell us a little bit about this metagame. What kind of how you see it going? Obviously, Praxis is going to be kind of the headliner here. We see a lot of players bringing Praxis here to Sunday, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a pretty radical upheaval in the metagame the last month or so. Most recently, seeing Fire Justice Shadow decks and Fire Time Primal decks all kind of still putting up good finishes and being like major players in the metagame, but getting more into line with most of the other strategies. And there's been a real shifting of power. You know, the balance is thrown off from how much with a different mix of decks out there. We're seeing a rise of Reanimator, and we're seeing a rise of a few different styles of Haru than we were seeing before. You know, more even of a split, and it's, I don't know, it's going to be really interesting to see how everybody adapts, because obviously Praxis pledge big deck for this weekend when people shift their strategies a little bit against it, and it's also going to be really interesting to see how things shape up between Stone Scar. This rise of this this Stone Scar deck is looking quite strong.
The balance changes really help Stone Scar. You know, one of the things we mentioned earlier is these Stone Scar decks are playing like 4 cards that recently got buffed due to balance changes.
Yeah, I mean, having everything from Argenport Instigator be a little bit more realistic of an option, having Sight Disruption, Face Blast, and you know, just the amount of options they've gained there, Champion of Chaos, everything. And this is a little bit different of a style of Stone Scar than we're used to from years gone by. You know, less focus, you know, instead of a focus on 1-drops, it's more the Statuary Maiden style.
Yeah. And more of a mid-range style, which is well equipped to fight against the Praxis mid-range, just thanks to you know, a couple of good tools. Champion of Chaos does a very good job of battling against larger units here.
Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see how that strategy does again in the Praxis metagame, as my understanding is those players feel confident that that's one of the matchups they want. You know, that's part of the reason to play the deck.
Yeah, it's funny. It is the sort of thing where when Praxis or any deck is a pretty large percentage of the field, if you made it to top 64, you probably had a good record against Praxis. Part of that, though, is you just had a good record overall. That's how you made it to top 64. So I'm not confident that every single person who thinks they beat Praxis beats Praxis, but I bet some of them actually do, and we're going to find out who those people are today, and if they're right about it.
Yeah, and plus all this is setting the groundwork for later this week when you know, when we see a real upheaval in the metagame from Dark Frontier.
Yeah, that's going to be releasing this coming Thursday, so just a couple days away. And we've got a round ready, so why don't we go ahead and head down to our top 32 and watch these players battle it out. Alrighty, welcome to top 32. We've got Enclave Cryptologist playing that exact Stone Scar deck that you were just talking about, facing off against Tony G, who's playing Winchest, and looks like a kind of a, one of the traditional, more controlling decks here in the format.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Tony G was well known for being an armory advocate for quite a while, and while the factions have stayed the same, this version is definitely a little bit more focused on Rizon and Sho and Vara, as opposed to the relic weapons from days gone by.
And Tony G using Seek Power here has got a torch for the smuggler here, or the merchant, but still going to be facing down against the 7/7 champion of Chaos, followed by a Flame Blast. So that's actually going to be close to lethal, though Defiance, a really nice draw from Tony G.
Yeah, Defiance is definitely proven to be every bit as format defining as a lot of people suspected, and has really helped give people answers to some of these incredible early threats.
Enclave Cryptologist showing good discipline, waiting a turn on the Extend Merchant to not cash in the Flame Blast, instead turning Fire Sigil into a Vicious Highwayman, though Tony G with a draw of their own, Hidden Road Smuggler here, being able to fetch something pretty nice for Tony G.
Yeah, now, the Desecrate's an interesting question. There's a temptation to use the Desecrate on the Merchant, but Hidden Road Smuggler doesn't actually trade with all that many things, so the fact that it can actually trade with the Ixtun Merchant kind of makes you want to save the Desecrate for something a little more threatening, right?
Yeah, I think that would be a pretty big win for Tony G. Tony G plays the Sigil, and it looks like they're just going to cash in the Desecrate right now just to drop a Vara a turn earlier.
Kind of like this. Getting a big, big board presence here. Desecrate's not even necessarily the best way to trade with any of the units in Enclave Cryptologist's deck, but...
Alright, Flame Blast does take out Vara, but that is going to leave Tony G safe from that. The Smuggler and the Merchant trade, and all of a sudden, well, it's showtime.
Wow.
The nerf to 8 does mean that Dragon's not coming out quite yet, but it'll come out soon.
Yeah, this is definitely, one of the spots where Sho really shines, giving you that extra, the extra card advantage combined with a potentially game-winning threat. All Tony G has to do is find one more power.
Seek Power does it, but on a turn delay, and that gives Enclave Cryptologist the opportunity to play Ixtun Merchant, see what they go ahead and grab there. Their market's getting a little thin, and Combust will take out the Sho that they know is coming.
Right. I mean, at this point, they don't really have a lot of great options anyway, and they just cannot afford to get hit by Sho.
Oh wow. Well, Flame Blast gives Enclave Cryptologist a new option, and wow, the change from 2 to 1 for Flame Blast is proving to be exactly what it needed to see a lot more play.
Right, and I like that play there too, so that they can keep the pressure up from the Ixtun Merchant rather than cashing it in with Combust. Yeah, the Flame Blast could potentially do some damage later, but the Ixtun Merchant gets half that damage each turn right now,
Here comes another Smuggler for Tony. Tony doing a very good job drawing out of this, and wow, Deep Forge Plate, but unfortunately for Tony G, that Combust fetched by the Merchant earlier. Wow, we are really going back and forth here. Statuary Maiden into Combust. That's going to give Enclave Cryptologist a cudgel too, and now they're back with the upper hand despite a really tremendous sequence of plays from Tony G.
Oh. Yeah, no question. This one's been a wild one. Statuary Maiden keeping a little bit of pressure on. The question is, do you commit with the cudgel? Putting the cudgel down does greatly increase the clock, but it does expose you to things like Vanquish. At the end of the day, though, it looks like the extra clock is worth it.
Yeah, and one more hit, and Tony G can't even play Desecrate. Statuary Maiden from Tony G again getting this. It looks like the Statuary Maidens are going to trade off cudgels for everyone, and we're going to end up in a spot. It's going to come down to every single bit of resources that both of these players have possessed.
Yeah, and it's not even clear right now, because this is the type of matchup where you can really have a back and forth even when somebody gets ahead a few cards. There's a lot of swings. Oh
man, Vara here gonna eat the Granite in, get a Stone Cudgel, go up to a 5/6, but Rip Knife Assassin that can trade for Vara. Enclave Cryptologist deciding whether to put a cudgel on their Rip Knife Assassin. They decide not to. display of ambition. The hits do not stop, and Tony G, wow, that display of ambition has to not quite put the nail in the coffin for Enclave Cryptologist, but getting pretty close here. Tony G is going to be able to pull back something like Show and a Vara, or potentially 2 Varas. Looks like Show plus Vara. Hard to, like, Enclave Cryptologist battled through so much, but that display has got to be what Tony G needed to get back on top here.
Oh yeah, and you know the synergy between Vara and Display of Ambition so good for doubling up on the bonus. But Vara's a solid draw. I mean, like if you're gonna draw something, it might as well be something like that. Wow. So at this point, trading off Varas has the advantage of giving Tony G a comfortable health amount, so that there's less worry of just a Flame Blast.
Desecrate for Enclave Cryptologist. You know, Tony G's got those 2 removal spells in hand, but we are somehow back to parity. Oh, there we go.
Wow.
That did not last long. Every time I think Tony G's out of gas, just the deck delivers, and Display of Ambition, pulling back that Vara, pulling back Rizon. We're done with card advantage. We're just going straight for the Juggler here, and Enclave Cryptologist again scrambling to find an answer. Let's see what Quarry finds for Enclave Cryptologist.
Some players, pros, even can't handle the swings.
Oh man, yeah, this was Tony G. You never didn't have it, All right, here's a Champion of Chaos coming down. That can trade for Vara, but
and Torch and Defiance don't quite line up right against the defensive Champion of Chaos.
Well, Torch plus Rizon do the trick though, and now Enclave Cryptologist is wishing they put that Stone Cudgel on their champion though, as unfortunately they don't know that it doesn't really matter. Tony G has answers regardless, and now we might even see Display of Ambition just taking out the Enclave Cryptologist. Looks like Tony's going to be potentially happy just hitting for 5 and saving Display of Ambition to bring back some points. Yeah,
at this point, I mean, these are some great draws from the Cryptologist, but I think the multiple Display of Ambitions in a row there, that's it. Things are really swinging further in Tony G's direction.
Yeah, the third Display of Ambition pulling back. Let's take a look. Two gigantic units Show, and looks like another Vara. 5/6 to start with. Here comes the 4th dragon of the game here, and it's going to be pretty difficult to imagine Enclave Cryptologist fighting back against this rising tide of resources here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, these FJS decks have taken a hit from their smugglers recently being changed, but they have adapted and are definitely evolving.
Yeah, and it looks like Enclave Cryptologist has had enough. Tony G wins the first game, and wow, that was quite a game. That featured some haymakers from both sides.
Yeah, no, that was wild. Was that like 12 swings back and forth,
yeah,
where it's just
at any point, every time someone looked like they had gained an advantage, it was soon taken away from them very quickly. And at the end of the day, Tony G was the one who ended up holding the full hand of cards, but it could have swung the other way really quickly. And in fact, there was even a turn where it looked like Enclave Cryptologist had lethal with the Flame Blast. It was very close to that.
Right to the wire, absolutely. But how much do you think the play versus the draw matters in this particular matchup?
Given the way that these games look, I don't think it's a huge factor. We're not talking about decks that have Teacher of Humility. Even a quick hit from like Champion of Chaos, the FJS deck has a lot of ways to kind of gain that health back. And it looked like a resource battle, which does point to even maybe going second being ideal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were concerned about the early damage from cards like Argenport Instigator and Champion of Chaos, but I think Defiance has definitely proven itself one of the best possible ways to defend yourself against those threats.
Alrighty, it looks like game 2 is ready, so let's head back down. Alrighty, welcome to game 2. Enclave Cryptologist down a game against Tony G, and Enclave Cryptologist, not on too fast of a start. I mean, he's sitting here with Obliterate, Desecrate, Torch in hand. That's the kind of hand that Tony G actually would prefer to play against. When you have a deck that's kind of built to go long and has Display of Ambition, you're totally fine playing against an opponent who's got a handful of them.
Right, because I mean, like for instance, we even see here, Cryptologist does nothing with a 3 power. giving them an opportunity to trade their cards for yours. They're just getting to use their power anyway. But if you're sitting around actually advancing your game, drawing extra cards, this is all real good for Tony G.
Tony G picking up a Defiance in anticipation here, and in comes the Vicious Highwayman, so Defiance is going to find itself a target.
So now, the Vanquish right here, is there any chance you lead with that one first and save the Defiance just to stop the chart?
Yeah, it looks like that makes the most sense. And Tony G also could have played a Vara this turn, but I think one of the ways Tony G loses this game is to play Vara, have Vara get killed and get attacked again, play another unit, have it get killed and get attacked again. Just taking the turn off to playing that Vanquish first is much safer, and Tony G got rewarded for that.
Yeah, and here we see what looks to be kind of the beginning of several turns of back and forth of present a threat and then question answer.
And if you take a look, we just saw Enclave Cryptologist market. Besides the Vicious Highwayman, it's mostly answers. So, which again it favors Tony G, because Tony G has a deck that's just a little bit bigger than Enclave Cryptologist. They're both, they both have tons of removal, and that tends to be where you want to be on the pecking order of deck speed. So Enclave Cryptologist would rather play against, much slower decks than this or much faster decks. An actual mid-range deck, I think, is going to be a little bit harder for Enclave Cryptologist to face down.
Yeah, I think one of the factors driving the Stone Scar deck, it's not just the recent buffs. The Stone Scar deck is taking advantage of just how many fewer FJS and FTP decks there are in the metagame. It's really aiming to prey on the more Praxis style of mid-range instead of the controlling mid-range decks like Tony G's.
Right, you would much rather play against someone who's got a bunch of 4 to 6 cost units, but not cards like Display of Ambition. Display of Ambition is like the exact card you don't want to see with this current strategy.
Yeah, I mean, if your Champion of Chaos has been nerfed so that now it dies to Display of Ambition.
This is true. Smuggler coming down, picking up a Harsh Rule. We're going to see some inefficiencies here, and Tony G is actually paying for it. I mean, this kind of game is how Enclave Cryptologist wants to go about it.
And here we see it actually coming back to bite him, the use of Vanquish earlier instead of Defiance like you were suggesting.
And here comes
uh-oh,
Vara, but Vara is going to be taken down here, playing the Instigator first to get that extra point of damage. Every point matters with Obliterate in hand and Flame Blast, in deck. Here we are, back down to even. Tony G has a significant health deficit, but more powerful cards to draw. Let's see how this plays out. Oh, Tony G's got one draw step to find something. Argenport Instigator comes down, and Crest of Chaos is a miss. It looks like Enclave Cryptologist is going to send these players to a third game.
Oh,
shows up a turn too late.
Yes.
Obliterate taking out Tony G and evening things up for Enclave Cryptologist. Pretty interesting strategy to look at balance changes and then just play all the cards in Stone Scar that got buffed. I mean, that it does appear to be the philosophy that these players have employed.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked out well for them, and the combination of Flame Blast and Obliterate for that extra reach on top of already having Torch and charge units like Vicious Highwayman and Ixton Merchant, obviously, like the amount of reach these decks have is so much greater than we've seen from more aggressive decks lately. Like that's just a lot of ways to finish the job.
At what health total against Stone Scar do you feel safe? I think multiples of 6 seem pretty common, right? When they have 6 power in play, both Flame Blast and Obliterate reach over and nug you for 6. So I could see being at like 15 and feeling like, nope, we're not stabilized yet. We're 2 burn spells away from being really threatened.
Yep.
Alrighty, it looks like the players are ready. So let's see the conclusion of this match. Welcome to Game 3 of Enclave Cryptologist against Tony G here on the top 32 of our Eternal Championship qualifier. And Enclave Cryptologist is Vara Rich here. 3 copies of Vara Vengeance Seeker. And going to get ready to deploy them once they hit their 4th power here. Tony G on the traditional start for this FJS deck of, drawing your treasure troves, developing your power base, kind of just getting set up for the mid game.
Yeah, the amount of smoothing that these treasures are going to do to capitalize on the lack of pressure from Cryptologist is definitely, you know, advantage meter Tony G's direction.
Enclave Cryptologist decides not to lead with turn 3 Shugo standard, which would have guaranteed the turn 4 4-drop. In fact, they're just going to go ahead and play the Ixtan Merchant here and find their Stone Scar banner. Both players using Smuggler or Merchant to find a banner here, which you know, I think does show the value of having the power in your market just to guarantee you hit your 4th in games where you have 3 plus a Smuggler.
Yeah, and it's an interesting choice using the Shugo standard here, like saving it as an additional finishing blow. It's an interesting strategy, and it definitely, you know, speaks to the putting pressure on Tony G's life total to mitigate the risk of the long game just sliding out of control.
Enclave Cryptologist really under the gun here, facing off against Statuary Maiden plus double removal spell, which leaves Tony G with more power on board, plus an additional Stone Cudgel in hand. Though the one thing going for Enclave Cryptologist is Tony G currently doesn't have a proactive way to get that VAR out of the way, though that Hidden Road Smuggler can go pick up a Vanquish if need be.
Yeah, I mean, if Tony G can top deck a power here, that's an undepleted power. That's, well, it's a little slow here, but at least it's something. This is that sequence we were talking about, though, where if your opponent, if you both have a lot of removal and powerful threats, and one player just plays a threat, and you try to respond with a threat of your own, you can start falling further and further behind if you can't stabilize. Like,
yeah, and here we see, you know, Tony G really pressing his advantage, putting a second Cudgel onto that Smuggler, attacking with both units, offering the trade of either of them for a Vara, figuring that the Vanquish in hand is going to come in handy later.
Wow, that's a big hit to take there.
Yeah, just Enclave Cryptologist took 11 right off the bat. Here comes a Statuary Maiden. Vara comes in, and let's see what Tony G's response is here. Just taking 5 and kind of going to get it ready to set up Vanquish on that Vara next turn.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. Playing the Statuary Maiden first does make it very disadvantageous to chump block, but it also telegraphs your play. But we see Tony G continuing to dig through the treasure, and this looks to be a very promising turn.
So Vanquish opens the door for definitely the big Smuggler to attack. Also, potentially the Statuary Maiden. And then, wow, Enclave Cryptologist really punished for not torching that 2/2 Smuggler. Remember, in Eternal, there's no response windows to getting to playing that Cudgel, though Enclave Cryptologist could have responded to the Vara being targeted with.
Right, yeah, I mean, there was plenty of opportunities on your own turn in response to the Vanquish, and here we're seeing the Greed getting punished just a little.
Yeah, now Enclave Cryptologist is going to have to lean pretty hard on, you know, something like a Vara here, but in a spot where a single other removal spell from Tony G ends the game, and looks like just going to play it safe, pick up potentially like something like Combust. Oh, getting an Obliterate, and then putting a Stone Cudgel on their Ixtan Merchant, offering it up as a blocker here.
Bold move. Yeah, I mean, and it actually ends up working out all right here, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, as far as this sequence of plays can go, getting able to trade for a Statuary Maiden is optimal.
The problem is if you take the 4 from the Smuggler, those 2 Rizons have the game 1 and 2.
Yeah, Rizon with an excess torch as backup here, and I think Tony G is almost assuredly going to win this game, because even though Enclave Cryptologist has health gain in the form of Vara, she takes a turn to get going. Enclave Cryptologist does not have that kind of time, and it looks like Tony G, thanks to largely Statuary Maiden, is going to be able to push things through for lethal and advance into our top 16 here.
Wow, wild game. That first game in particular. Whew.
Yeah, there was some back and forth, and Tony G, you know, is here but for the grace of the top of their deck, and that is how it goes when you're battling. And we're gonna be looking for another game to play, but yeah, that was a very good one.
It's gonna be interesting to see how it works in this metagame if Tony G can continue to get the matchups they're looking for.
Yeah. All right, looks like we've got ourselves another game, so let's head on down. Alrighty, these players are in game 2. We've got Juggler 314 facing off against T-Chamber 5, playing Praxis, and Juggler on Huru here with, despite being slowed down by some disciplinary weights here, enough power, and it looks like a Corvette Palace, which is ready to go. That you see the three agendas have been played, but Svetya hasn't yet come out, so we'll see if T-Chamber 5 is going to be able to pressure that Palace enough to stop Svetya from hitting the board.
The big thing is the Sandstorm Scarf here has just been it's game warping in this spot. Otherwise, there'd be lethal in the air immediately.
Yeah, and here we see invulnerable to damage, letting Silver and Courier attack with no fear of those deadly scorpions.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting spot where Huru where Juggler can be continuing to press the attack because of the invulnerable, but the powerful Gunrunner plus Deadly combination, from everything from Scorpions to Daria's bonus, it makes it very, very difficult to defend yourself.
Yeah, and Juggler comes to the same conclusion, is going to vanquish that Gunrunner there, and then play another Shelter Wing Rider. That Sandstorm Scarf, you see those effects playing out across the whole battlefield. And as Patrick said, without that Scarf, I think that T-Chamber 5 would have been long since vanquished thanks to the multiple flyers on Juggler's side.
Now, does Juggler have access to a Vision of Austerity, or the Omen of Austerity, Vision of Austerity sort of path? Looks like, gamble with none. Yeah, it was very mixed. Some Huru players playing it as an answer to things like Sandstorm Scarf, some players opting to go without it.
Yeah, it's at its core kind of a reactive play, and I think that a lot of these Huru decks are just kind of built to be proactive, so I'm not surprised to see a mix of removal and threats as opposed to something that's a little bit fancier.
The pressure staying on from the invulnerable to damage units, and just the size in general, it's got to make a lot of headway quickly, because this game can swing back towards Praxis real fast.
Praxis has a lot of haymakers, and Aurelian Merchant's going to go digging for one here. Time Sigil about to be exchanged for a Xenon Obelisk. Not at its strongest here, given the fact that Juggler's units far outpace T-Chamber's 5s in terms of size already.
Now, Xenon Obelisk at least has the advantage of being playable even under a Svetya.
It's true, and Svetya does come down. He's going to lock out all spells and weapons for a turn from T-Chamber 5. And, Juggler has multiple copies of Corvette Palace, so plenty of things to do. Even if Juggler did run out of time, Svetya does have an activated ability that, does actually come into play in games such as this.
Oh yeah, and we've seen Svetya's ability in some of the Huru Flyers decks be a little slow, and in the Huru Control decks have not enough hits. Svetya's ability is at its best in these Pledge decks, where you can find such powerful threats as the Silverwing Courier or Reyna.
All right, well, here comes Wisdom of the Elders, hitting a Scorpion Trap and a Bearguard Bayonet that, thanks to the disciplinary weights, Juggler can't quite cast. But again, setting up a site and having the ability to go through all three turns of it, but potentially even the fourth with having the unit come into play, that's a huge advantage. That means you're doing something when your opponent's not doing it. You're getting recursive advantage.
And these are powerful somethings to be doing, right? Yeah. I mean, like, withstand Wisdom of the Elders and sack the city are no joke, and Svetya is a very real game piece as well.
Yeah, it's basically at this point impossible for Juggler to run out of action given Svetya and multiple copies of Corvette Palace, which means that T-Chamber 5 is really under pressure to have a bunch of good turns here. Warping a Heart of the Vault, usually a good start though.
Right, and it looks like going after that Silverwing Courier, setting up what is potentially going to eventually be Purify.
Yeah. All right, Valkyrie Enforcer, the draw here for Juggler, not bad. Could reduce, potentially like take out deadly on one of the units from T-Chamber 5. The T-Chamber 5 has so many deadly units thanks to Daria.
Man, and being able to withstand the Courier, restoring the Aegis situation, and being able to give Overwhelm so that there's no more chump blocking. This one is over.
Yeah, and you see a second copy of Corvette Palace come down, and it looks like that Silverwing Courier is going to come in for 15 points of overall damage, invulnerable to damage. So can't get taken down by Deadly. Has Aegis, so can't get purified. Juggler's in a really good spot here. Also, Berserk working really nicely here. With this huge Overwhelm unit.
What a weekend for Overwhelm.
Yeah.
Man, we've seen Overwhelm Rod, Overwhelm with the Daria combo, Overwhelm on the Giant Invulnerable to Damage Threat in Huru.
And it looks like Juggler's going to take this game. T-Chamber 5 draws a gun runner. That does give T-Chamber 5 a clandestine shotgun, but wow, there's just too much stats on the side of Juggler, and T-Chamber 5 goes out the honorable way, uses clandestine shotgun, attacks the Silverwind Courier, and accepts their fate. So Juggler 314 advances to the top 16. T-Chamber 5 has to settle for a top 32 finish. Let's take a look to see what other matches we've got, and I'm curious. Well, it looks like we're out of matches for now, so we're gonna have to conclude the round. Juggler 314 did play against Praxis for the first 2 rounds, so it's possible that their Huru deck is set up well for that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, as we saw there, definitely a lot of things working right, even able to power through that Sandstorm Scarf.
Yeah, so that'll do it for this round. We will be back in just a couple minutes for the top 16. You will be entertained, of course, by Andrew Beckstrom and Patrick Chapin's excellent commentary. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, Patrick Chapin's excellent commentary. Andrew Beckstrom will be present. We've established he is good at that. So we will be back with the top 16 in just a couple minutes.
Welcome back to coverage of ECQ Dark Frontier. I'm Andrew Beckstrom. I'm here with Patrick Chapin. How's it going today, Patrick?
Excellent. It's a very overwhelm-centric day, which warms my cold, dead heart.
Well, speaking of overwhelm, we're going to overwhelm you with some more product reveals / teases. Let's take a look now at Eternal Chronicles. Eternal Chronicles is our new Eternal deck builder. So if you've never played a deck builder before, it's the kind of game where you start off with a base deck, and then throughout the game you're acquiring new cards, more powerful, more awesome cards, and facing off against an opponent. And so this game can be played between 2 to 4 players. It is not a collectible game. Every card you need to play the game will come included when you buy it. And it's not a direct port of Eternal per se, but as you can see when you see the cards on the screen right now, you see there's a lot of inspiration. There's some similar mechanics. You will be interacting with your opponent by attacking and blocking, and you see some similar cards. And a lot was inspired from Eternal, the collectible digital card game that you've all come to know and love. So if you're interested in Eternal Chronicles, we've both play tested it, and we're both really excited about this. The game will be coming out this August. You can pre-order it right now, and when you pre-order it, you immediately receive a draft ticket that you can use on Eternal, the digital card game. And when the game ships later this summer, you'll get an Eternal Chronicles of the Throne, a Curiox Totem, 10 packs, and another draft ticket. So it's a really good deal all around for what I think is a pretty fun game. So if you're interested, you can go to eternalchronicles.com and check it out.
Yeah, I mean, this game definitely, first of all, it's legit my favorite deck building game that I've ever played, but it's also kind of an awesome way to dig a little deeper and find out a little bit more of the world of Myria.
Yeah. And if you're interested in learning even more, one of our fellow designers, Paul Denon, wrote an awesome article detailing his process about how he went from porting the world of Myria and Eternal into a deck builder game. So really cool if you're interested in the game design aspect of things. But right now, we've actually got a new preview card to show all of you. So I know you're all excited for that. For Dark Frontier releasing this Thursday, we'll say hello and meet Clodo, Loyal Advisor.
So Clodo is a pretty aggressive, powerful new hero. She starts off already a pretty legit attacker, but the ability to grow in offense so quickly, and yes, there are plenty of cards in this set with Scout. It's not Dark Frontier has plenty of scouting. It's very dangerous to go alone, and Clodo being able to really help you take advantage of that early on. She's not the only incentive for scouting, but she's also just one of those cards that starts off already solid and just gets better from there.
Yeah, I've played some really exciting games with this card where it's like, holy cow, I just have a fire 2-drop that's attacking through a Sandstorm Titan. What's going on here? But there's a lot of different scout cards in the game for you guys to check out, and hopefully you'll find the right mix to make Clodo work well for you.
Wait, does this work with crests?
Why, yes, it does. That's pretty strong, Patrick.
Did we miss that?
Yeah, every crest you play will grow your Clodo every larger as addition to any other Scout Matters cards that might be in Dark Frontier. Well, we'll have to see.
Yeah, and that there is still one mechanic yet to come. We haven't seen yet, but scouting is also something that it's already its own reward, and here you get even more than the sum of the parts. So it looks like we have another round ready, and we're going to be jumping back down to the Dark Frontier ECQ.
Yep. Welcome to Top 16 coverage of ECQ Dark Frontier. I'm Andrew Beckstrom with Patrick Chapin, and we've got Iliac A 1986, a famous member of the community, versus Illion, a streamer of note. And we've got Praxis Pledge up against Stone Scar, and a pretty unit light, power light draw from the Stone Scar side. They're just got a lot of Flame Blast stacked up while they're getting beat up by an Amaranth Stinger that looks like it's already put a bunch of Scorpion Traps into the deck.
Right, but Illion also a little short on power themselves, and generally I just think everything we're seeing right now is quite ill.
Hopefully Iliac A can rip the power they need this turn and get this Vara down fast before they got Scorpions for days on the other side to feed it. An end of turn Torch will take out that Initiative of the Sands, and an Argent Port Instigator off the top is the play. hold off the Amaranth Stinger, but yeah, Illion is developing nicely. It appears they did pledge this game, so that Clandestine Shotgun comes down, finishes off the Argent Board Instigator, deals a point 2 to Iliac A. Amaranth Stinger gets in for 2. Scorpion Trap off the top. It is rolling right now for Illion.
Yeah, and here we see the trouble of not putting a banner or some other such power card in your market.
Cauldron Cookbook will get you to some power eventually, but still missing the fire influence for that, and it's a long time to start using that one.
No, it's never too early to start cooking the books.
Clandestine Shotgun again does more work, picking off with the quick draw from the Gunrunner, the Ixton Merchant for free. Moonstone Vanguard comes down. Iliac A is down to 12. A Champion of Chaos comes off the top, but that's just going to be a nice old 3-3 for 3.
Yeah, it's just too late. Being behind the Gunrunner in a spot like this, no coming back.
Yeah, it is tough to beat Praxis Pledge when you get off on the back foot. If you can get under them, things get a lot better. Their Amaranth Stingers look worse. Their Teachers look worse. But that game, it was all rolling for Illion. So we'll get ready for game 2 in this matchup. So Iliac A is somebody that many people are familiar with. You see him around in the community, and it's exciting to see him making his mark on the ECQ this weekend. Top 64 last weekend, so got a lot of momentum rolling. Maybe he can start to turn things around and get his way to the top 8 right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. This is definitely the matchup he was looking for.
Yeah. On the other side, Illion streaming with a streamer with Praxis Pledge, deck of the tournament. Not much to say except how good is this deck? Is this deck that like sort of S tier status the community likes to say, or is it merely just the deck of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a powerful force at high level ranked over the past week and a half, and here we're seeing things really come to a head. And it looks like we are about to dive down into game 2. And Iliac A has thrown back a hand, but kept. Looks like
all right, we're rolling in this top 16 game 2 match. Illion up a game with Praxis Pledge against Stone Scar aggro, and Iliac A looks like they let off with a shakedown. They've got another one this turn, maybe queued up. They've got a torch. They've got some early interaction. They've already picked off a Teacher of Humility. Instead, they're going to wait on the shakedown just to be able to leave up Torch this turn.
Oh, this is an interesting move. And sure enough, pays off.
Looks like it, yeah. It's possible they didn't see very many drops, and so they wanted to give Illion a chance to draw some more off their first shakedown. Torch finishes off the Initiate.
And knowing that they're going to play this turn shakedown into Minotaur anyway, this gives them one extra turn to look to see what kind of cards Illion's going to be playing.
Beautifully set up. Shakedown clears the way for the Black Hole War Leader, and Illion has no turn 3 play.
No.
We're going to get this Minotaur a rolling. So when Black Hole War Leader, every time it hits, the Illion is going to grow +1/+1, and it's going to start inspiring units. So now it's inspiring for +1/+1, and that'll just keep ticking up. Avar comes down. Nothing to sacrifice. 5/6, and what a board Iliac A's already got by turn 4.
Yeah, I mean, this Praxis deck is not built to play on defense. You know, it presses advantages, but it is not built to play from behind. And with such a, with Vara coming in here, at least the Minotaur is held off for a turn. But this is definitely how, this is how Iliac A's got to do it.
Iliac A draws a Treachery for the turn, but instead opts to just get down this Vara as opposed to clearing out the next unit. Sees a Champion of Chaos on top, likely leaving it there to get inspired by that Black Hole War Leader.
Daria Warrior Poet, just the linchpin that holds this deck together. One of the most hyped cards early on, but it took players a while to really come around and find Daria's niche in the metagame.
The combos in this Praxis Pledge deck in particular really make great use of Daria, both from the Pledge side and the Berserk Deadly side.
Yeah, I mean, being able to give your deadly units, give your units deadly that already had Overwhelm. That's definitely a tough way to do it.
So to catch you up, Treachery takes Heart of the Vault. Aurelian Merchant comes down, purifies that Champion of Chaos. It's still a 4/4, and it's still going to keep on crunching in. Illion has just been flooding out these last couple of turns.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely continuing to be a good position for Iliac A. What do you think of keeping Vara home in this spot?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There's no Aegis to worry about, so you're not getting any benefit there. Well, Anika the Freescaler comes off the top. If you're not familiar with this one, it's a 3/3 that you can pay 3 to double its strength for the turn, and every time the enemy plays a spell on it, they're going to take some damage. A Desecrate off the top. That's going to open things up. Well, it clears out the Daria, and it clears out the game for Iliac A. Iliac A ties it up 1-1, so now we're going to get a deciding game 3. Gotta love that.
Absolutely. I mean, Champion of Chaos, Deadly Overwhelm, it was already there. You know, all the pieces, all the clues, they were already there.
So it'll be interesting to look as we get into game 3, how picky these players are about their hands. As we've seen just the early start to the game, Amarin Stinger in game 1 and then Black Hole War Leader in game 2. Getting off that sort of that early edge underneath was so critical.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really helped there, just before we switched over, Iliac A redrawing aggressively to find early plays to try to make sure that he starts off ahead in the tempo.
And if you're on Iliac A's side, you've got those shakedowns, and those are sometimes going to clear out the way early, but I know that they're not as reliable as they might seem. You never know. All right, well, let's head down for game 3 of this top 16 matchup. Here we go. The critical game 3 between Iliac A and Illion. Praxis Pledge versus Stone Scar Aggro. What do you make of these opening hands, Patrick?
I mean, this is an excellent hand for Iliac A. Absolutely excellent mix of powerful threats for early as well as ways to clear them through. Illion's draw was a little slow, except fortunately top decked a much needed power.
Right.
Definitely a speculative keep by Illion.
Absolutely. Well, for Iliac A's side, instead of getting to deploy that turn 2 Black Hole War Leader, forced to just spend 1 power on a torch. And do they have an answer? Once again, they're going to get in this awkward sort of call and response where all they can do for their turn is kill a Teacher of Humility and not get these Black Hole War Leaders going.
Oh, that's interesting. Choosing to use Desecrate instead of Flame Blast. You know, intuitively, you kind of think Flame Blast is the play so that next turn you can Black Hole War Leader and Desecrate in the same turn and really get the ball, you know, the tempo swinging in your favor. But here we see Iliac A choosing to hold Flame Blast and save it for a rainy day.
Glasshopper coming out of the market for Illion. So on Iliac A's side, they can drop 2 2s. What is it going to be? It's going to first the Black Hole War Leader and just a second Black Hole War Leader, neglecting not to treachery something out of the hand.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Iliac A has seen already that there's either a Moonstone Vanguard or a Daria or a Sakalis. And here we see, in fact, we know it's a Sakalis, but the jig is still not up for Iliac A.
Thanks to the Glasshopper's cost reduction of pledge units, the Sakalis down to 3, playable this turn, or Illion could opt to play some torches. What do you see there?
Yeah, I think at this point, things are going so well, I would just clear the way with both torches. But I don't know, because there's something to be said about if you play one Sakalis now, you can play all 3 next turn. But the problem is, if either of these Minotaurs hit you at all, now they're out of torch range. And I think it's just, why not quiet things down a little bit? You've got such staying power, it just seems so risky.
Illion agrees with you. A treachery will reveal 2 Sakalises to Iliac A. They take one of them. Now they get to attack with both Black Hole War Leaders with minimal hope of actually getting through unless Illion decides to coward their way out of this block.
And this is a real dangerous sequence. The possibility that this could have been met with a Shogun standard definitely makes waiting a little bit dicey. That said, it does play around a Vicious Highwayman a little bit better. So, you know, there's pros and cons.
Torches clear the board. Will Iliac A sees a Flame Blast? Gonna have to decide on that. And they've got a Dark Return, so they could just snap it off now, or they could wait till next turn. They'll just do it now, trying to conserve their power as best they can. Gets that Black Hole War Leader up to a 3/4. Tough draw if you're Iliac A. An Amarin Stinger off the top for Illion. Right on in. 5 Scorpion Traps into the deck for Iliac A. And if you're Iliac A, you're hoping those are very close to the bottom 20 cards of that range. A Statuary Maiden is a pretty solid draw. It's going to lock up the board for the moment, except for the invulnerable to damage Sakalis.
Yeah, I mean, so Statuary Maiden is such a key card. I mean, that's the best unit in Iliac A's deck again in this matchup. The ability to not only dominate so many potential Praxis threats, but to start getting you a real advantage to go bigger and to go over the top of Illion and Praxis Pledge. Definitely an important player here.
Flame Blast takes out the Sakalis, and now we see a Stone Cudgel coming into the deck. And now we could start to see a bit of an engine coming together. Stone Cudgels from Statuary Maiden, maybe going on the Black Hole War Leader. getting that whole train rolling. A torch off the top is going to make things hard for Iliac A here. Because if they were to block potentially on this Amaranth Stinger, a torch could finish it off. Illion weighing how likely Iliac A is to block here.
Yeah, one of the tough parts though is that if you can't draw the trade now, it's going to get a lot harder next turn.
Opts for no attack, leaves both units back, maybe hoping to combine a block with a torch. The cudgel comes down on the Black Hole Ward Leader, and it's coming in, and Illion opts against the double block plus torch, so now that Black Hole War Leader grows, and its Inspire is now rolling.
Wow. See, at this point, things are going to... Well, there we go. That's something.
Daria Warrior Poet, excellent at turning on these units into more valuable pieces with its ability to grant Berserk and Deadly. An interesting attack here. Amaranth Stinger...
Yeah, choosing to go after the Statuary Maiden rather than the Giant Minotaur, just recognizing how crucial Statuary Maiden is to Iliac A's game plan.
And things look tough for Illion at the moment, but don't forget, there are 5 Scorpion Traps in the top of Iliac A's deck that could start rolling out at any moment. They've got Avara's Favor for the first one on Iliac A's side, but after that, we see a Chump by Aurelian Merchant.
And Daria coming up next means the pressure is going to keep coming. But Iliac A making great use of Dark Return in order to get redundancy on the Statuary Maiden. So one of the powerful things about Daria isn't just the bursty kills and how great of a threat they are on its own. The ability to upgrade things like Scorpions or to upgrade it like a Glasshopper or a Amaranth Stinger into a lethal threat. And here we see the other part of the combo. Gunrunner giving all your units quick draw combines so well with the deadly that Daria affords them.
Now we see Illion trying to turn the corner. Thanks to the Gunrunner, the quick draw, the Berserk, the deadly, it's all coming together. They're attacking in right now for Berserk. Iliac A knows they have no block at all that's profitable, just takes it. They're down to 7. This is happening fast.
Yeah, the good news is at least Farah's Favor can get the gun, the clandestine shotgun off the table. Desecrate is an answer. It's better than getting hit by Daria more, but that's dangerously low. We're talking about a deck that has access to some reach, to say nothing of overwhelmed deadly combinations.
Real tight match here. We're in game 3. These players are playing for a berth in our top 8, and they're carefully weighing Iliac A right now what to desecrate, and if to desecrate, as you mentioned, but I think you've got to just desecrate something and relieve some pressure here.
Oh, I love it. This is the aggressive plan.
Wow, a Desecrated Glasshopper, turning it into a Stone Cudgel. And is this a lethal attack? No, it's not going to be quite, even if they had attacked with everything.
What a gamble. Isn't this...
This is something.
Isn't this just game over? Wow. Iliac A, I guess, was just assuming that Illion would
Callus
block.
off the top for Illion.
Well, they've already got it anyway, right? I mean, just Daria and the Gunrunner.
Daria used its Berserk last turn.
Ah, yes. So
that was enough for lethal. An incredible top deck for Illion. Despite never getting a Scorpion off their Hammer and Stinger, they managed to pull it out. An incredible game. Giant units flying back and forth across the screen. And congrats to Illion on advancing to the top 8. And a tough game for Iliac A. I like and respect the gamble that they made on the final turn of that game, but boy, did it work out badly.
Yeah, man. Besides, you got to know, Illion is lucky. Illion is like well above. Like Illion, I think is like a 0.88 on the Luis scale.
Yes.
That's really, you have to imagine that they have a Sakalis coming.
Well, perhaps we'll get that next to players' names along with their rank in the rank queue soon enough, so you know how to account for that. Our producer, Michael Jacob, is going to be looking for another match to drop us into. We'll try to see as many of these top 16 games as we can before they wrap up. And it looks like we're ready to head down to another game. And we're catching up. We've got Dark Revenger against Minor Pentatonic. We watched a little bit of both of these players playing earlier, and we've got a Genève Peaks deck up against Praxis Pledge, and it looks like the game count, Minor Pentatonic is up a game, but boy, they are up against 2 Heart of the Vaults and a Howling Peak right now.
Yeah, and Torch has finished off one of the Heart of the Vaults. But they're definitely at a spot where they're on the back foot in this Praxis deck, as we've talked about, not good on the back foot. with 2 major threats on the table and Dark Revenger with a full grip, easily able to commit at least one additional major threat every turn, it's going to be very difficult for Minor Pentatonic to turn the corner.
Yeah, to me it looks like Minor Pentatonic probably had some power development issues this game. They have 28 power worth of units in play, and they are running out of time to get them into play. Little hope of being able to do 2 things in a turn. What is the best thing that they could do this turn? Maybe a Heart of the Vault and hope you rip something miraculous off the top that you can play, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, so frequently it starts with something like Heart of the Vault to start the parlay going. Dark Revenger, the one weakness Dark Revenger has is such a low life total. But with Equivocate bouncing back, that's all she wrote.
Well, neither the Time Sigil nor the Roosting Owl will be enough to get them back into the game, so we'll be heading to a Game 3 of that matchup. And it's a matchup we've seen a little bit already today, and it looks pretty even on both sides from what I can tell.
Yeah, I think the nerf to the Great Valley Smuggler and to Jotun Hurler has set the FTP deck back just a little bit. And unlike unlike FJS, they don't have access to things like Harsh Rule to punish the Praxis deck. So the Praxis deck can really play out everything, but on balance, they've got a lot more big boom booms of their own. And so if they can get the momentum going, it's not like this Praxis deck wants to play against Howling Peak.
An interesting thing I've seen is some of the FTP Peaks players going back to playing Permafrost. They were scared for the last month because of Korrivat Palace, but they're starting to get their gumption again up against the Praxis decks. Well, let's head down for Game 3 of this match and see if Peaks can pull it out. And we've got Dark Revenger on FTP Peaks up against Minor Pentatonic on Praxis Pledge, and a pretty nice opening draw for Minor Pentatonic. They got that turn 1 initiate. They've got a 3-drop or a 2-drop queued up, but it's that critical decision of Aurelian Merchant versus Teacher of Humility, and they opt to waste the power, get that Teacher of Humility down, and hope that Dark Revenger doesn't have anything that can interact with it on turn 2, and a strategize means they won't.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big gamble. I mean, obviously you're opening yourself up to things like Hailstorm, and I think that part of the calculus, though, is Dark Revenger clearly would have torched the Initiate, so at least that's not the answer. And if they have Hailstorm, well, you'll still get the weights on them before it comes to that.
Severe influence issues on the other side for Dark Revenger. They've got a Hailstorm queued up for next turn, and thankfully a Crest of Impulse comes off the top to give them their first time influence of the game. They will have to wait on that a turn if they want to be able to deploy a 3-drop, though, since their only undepleted power is a Fire or Primal Sigil.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those spots where, once again, we see the power of having some sort of a banner or some other fixer in your market.
Well, we'll see if Minor Pentatonic has one here, as they have an Aurelian Merchant, but no other power for this turn. They'll dig into the market right now, potentially putting back a Heart of the Vault since they have 2.
Another big interaction we could potentially see. Howling Peak so powerful against these Praxis decks, but if they can get Gunrunner down, Gunrunner giving everybody quick draw makes Gun down no longer an option.
Wow, instead of going for Praxis Banner, Minor Pentatonic goes and grabs a Xenon Initiation. They just want to be able to clear the way out of whatever might come. And boy, Dark Revenger smells blood in the water. They kill that Aurelian Merchant to take them off power.
Yeah, I mean, this is just keeping the pressure on. And it's looking pretty good here. The Equivocates can buy some time. The nice thing about the potential Equivocate thing, though, is that if Minor Pentatonic doesn't draw a 4th power, they're going to really be stalled out.
So instead of going for a 4-drop Equivocate from their hand, they instead go for Aurelian Merchant, get a Praxis Banner, and now they have the 2-drop, the 2-cost Equivocate in their hand ready to go. And no power off the top for Minor Pentatonic. This Equivocate is going to set them so far back.
Yeah, this is, I mean, depending on what the 4 is, as long as it actually costs 4, I think it's going to be a little rough. And we see Sandstorm Titan back in Minor Pentatonic's hand as a Lethrai Skyrider. Not sure how many elves Minor Pentatonic has access to, but I'm guessing it's not a ton.
The Praxis Pledge deck, not known for being spell heavy either. So now Dark Revenger, they've managed to stabilize. They've done an effective job at destroying the power of Minor Pentatonic, and now they have to figure out the best way to shape out the rest of this game, because they've got options. They've got either their choice of Merchant or Smuggler. They could just drop a Sandstorm Titan, and that's what they'll go with.
Man, this one has really swung. This was looking so good back in the minor Pentatonic put a disciplinary weights on Dark Revenger period of the game.
Absolutely.
But this is one of the risks when you rely on the on so many units for your power.
Aurelian Merchant boosts Dark Revenger all the way up to 8 power, and now they've got their choice of juicy high drops. They could go for the Zalchi or the Mullet Nakova.
But the Aurelian Merchant only able to get Zalchi. The Mullet Nakova, definitely a favorite with Great Valley Smuggler, but now merely used by Howling Peak Smuggler.
Great point. So Zalchi comes down.
Also
into the
easier
hand.
to cast with weights.
True. Luckily, a Time Sigil off the top for Minor Pentatonic. They've got their choice of 4 drops now. I think they'll choosing between Daria and Sandstorm Titan. I think Lethrise Sky Strider's sitting this one out.
Minor Pentatonic's got to be feeling it, the whole getting Xenon Initiation instead of Praxis Banner.
Yeah, one of those critical decisions they'll be thinking about for a while if they can't manage to come back in this one. Because here he comes, Zalchi, Herald of War, 7-5, charge, overwhelm. They're crunching in with everything. These Sandstorm Titans are bouncing off of each other as the Zalchi hits for 7.
Well, at least this is 2 good plays in one turn, right? I mean, the ability, now the Xenon Initiation giving you the ability to actually deal with, at least the Sandstorm Titan if you want, or, I mean, it's tough though. How are you going to deal with the Elementals if you go after Zalchi?
If you can manage to keep the Sandstorm Titan around, that's a good plan because it'll stop them from flying. We know Dark Revenger has an Equivocate on their side. We see a Zen Initiation on the Sandstorm Titan. Gets it up to a 6-7, eats the other Sandstorm Titan. And the rest of their turn will be spent on a Glass Hopper, which is going to pick up the unit they pledged at the beginning of the game. An Apex Predator. Well, that's another expensive card they can't play for a while.
The nice thing is at least the Glass Hopper is reducing enough costs to really at least promise some amount of development for Pentatonic.
Dark Revenger's done a good job of hitting their power drops, so while these cards are more expensive thanks to disciplinary rates that they're getting off the Strategize, they are eminently playable. So their choice now to put one back. They could put back the Smuggler, play a power, and have up to 4 drops, or they could just put back the Sigil and have access to one of these cards this turn.
Yep, tight decisions. At the end of the day, it looks like they do want to put the power back and keep as much gas as possible. They've got a good thing going with this Zalchi, but that could fall apart.
Minor Pentatonic elects not to trade with the Zalchi, knowing the Sandstorm Titan is their ultimate plan to being able to handle the Ruin Stalkers that will come out once the Zalchi dies to Entomb. This Praxis deck is not great outside of like maybe a Purify in the market at dealing with an Entomb unit other than just brute forcing their way. Luckily, another power off the top.
So interesting, choosing to use Daria here instead of attempting the Gunrunner Torch combo. Now, the nice thing about this line is at least Equivocate isn't blowing you out in response to the Gunrunner, the Gunrunner's quick draw falling apart, but
a brutal situation. That Equivocate was earmarked for the Sandstorm Titan for some time, and Minor Pentatonic played right into it by using the Daria's Amplify on the Sandstorm Titan. A Torch off the top. Well,
Howling Peak Smuggler means Torch could potentially take Daria down.
I like that line a lot. It means the Zalchi keeps on going.
And it's, are you trading in Strategize here to pick up something like a Mullet Nakova or Caleb's choice? Sure, stop any potential burn that might catch them back up or Purify or...
So Dark Revenger can make this attack and then decide how they want to Torch thanks to Overwhelm. They aren't paying much of a cost, so this is a pretty tight technical play by them. We'll see where Minor Pentatonic opts to go. They know they don't have access to a Sandstorm Titan. How are they going to deal with this Zalchi?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your plan is if you take it.
They could start combining in the future the Gunrunner with the Torch and the Heart of the Vault to potentially work through these, but I don't know if they have the health total to do that.
Well, and they know that Howling Peak Smuggler just, brought some goods into the country. So, one way or the other, you're going to have to do something. Oh.
Minor Pentatonic takes it. They're at 4. Torch is not usually lethal, but thanks to Howling Peak Smuggler, that Torch deals 4 and puts Dark Revenger into the top 8.
Torch is lethal a lot.
But usually not at 4.
Oh, wow.
We're breaking new grounds at how Torch can finish off players in this ECQ. Welcome back to the booth. It's myself, Andrew Beckstrom, here with Patrick Chapin. And our producer, Michael Jacob, will be looking for another match as we round out the top 8. We're getting down to it. We're going to queue 2 players for Worlds today. You'll get to see both semifinal games. We will not run them concurrently. We'll have them run staggered, so you get to see all of the action. And it's an exciting day. $5,000 prize pool. We're showing off Dark Frontier previews. Dark Frontier comes out Thursday. And I'm really excited for people to get to play with this set. But before we get to that, we're going to head down to another match. Guessing we're in game 3 between Juggler 314 and Huru Pledge versus hashtag. Oh, is this?
This is game 2.
Game 2.
The power of Huru control. Slow it down. We have Huru control. Is this the Huru control mirror match?
I know Juggler's definitely playing a Huru Pledge strategy. We got to see a little bit of them playing earlier. They've got the Silverwing Couriers and the Anayas.
Yep.
We see the marked Bear Guard Bayonet, typical of a Huru Pledge strategy. And it's going to come down on this Genève Merchant, and they're definitely up against it. Light on units up against this Valkyrie Enforcer and the Genève Merchant, and a Winchester Merchant off the top, a Choreobat Palace coming down for hashtag. This is looking tough.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't good before the Choreobat Palace, but it's moved well into really bad territory.
And a really bad top deck by Juggler 314. Huru Banner off the top means they're going to concede, and hashtag advances to our top 8. So a Huru mirror match in the top 16. So it seems like some players, Huru was definitely the hotness a month ago, have found ways to adapt Huru to be able to fight better against Praxis. I think having more units in your deck is a great place to start.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period where we were seeing, it went from Huru Pledge was like the big thing everybody was on, and then they shifted, and there was about a week and a half, 2-week period where Huru Flyers was the deck to beat that everybody was all about. And then Zach Hill and his team showed up with, at our last ECQ, Huru Control, and it revolutionized the Huru Frontier. I mean, the Huru Control deck for a couple weeks was that was the version of Huru that people were playing. And now with the rise of Praxis, Huru's been forced to have to adapt and evolve again. And obviously the Shelterwing Rider change, an influential figure, and Jotun Hurler shrinking has made it less attractive of an option for control. And in this event this weekend, we're seeing a pretty even split between all the different shades of Huru, but Huru Pledge being slightly more popular, and here we see coming out on top.
Well done by hashtag. And is that the last match that we have for this round? It is. So we're gonna
bang.
So we're gonna head to a break. We'll have Louis Scott Vargas tagging in next round for commentary, and we'll have more previews and more exciting ECQ action coming your way.
I'm not even supposed to be here.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the booth. I'm Luis Scott Vargas here with Andrew Beckstrom. We are covering the top 8 of this Dark Frontier Eternal Championship qualifier. We have whittled 64 down to 8. We've seen some pretty exciting matches. That top deck Tangelos in the Ilion Iliac A showdown was pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen people have a lot of different decks today between Stone Scar, Huru, Praxis, Genev Peaks, and it's going to be exciting to see which of them comes out on top. For these players, this is getting down to the nitty gritty. They've got to win this one, and then they got to win the next one if they want to punch their ticket to Worlds.
Yeah, so two wins away. Got to go 2-0 to make it to Worlds. Pretty exciting stuff, and these players, I'm sure, are really feeling it at this point.
But before we get started with the next round of coverage, we're actually going to talk about a upcoming game that you can pre-order from Direwolf Digital, Oathbreaker, the Game of Thrones social deduction game. We made this in partnership with Game of Thrones and HBO, and it's available for pre-order now at our website, direwolfdigital.com. If you've played social deduction games like Werewolf, things of that nature, you'll definitely enjoy this kind of game. It fits right into the world. You're either a player who's loyal to the king or an enemy of the king, and you have your own personal motivations, greed, lust, fame, all of those sorts of good stuff. And it's a great time. And if you pre-order it, you get a Jon and Snow and Sansa Stark flippable player card that you get to play with in the game. Different characters have different skills and motivations. And if you're a fan of social deduction games or a fan of Game of Thrones, I definitely recommend you check it out.
Yeah, you also there's a king role too. So and I have been kind of proven to be a fair and just king. When we've played this game.
Yeah, your role as the king is you got to figure out who's loyal to you and who's not. A skill that Luis has to make use of quite often. It turns out.
Okay. Yeah, Game of Thrones Oathbreaker is a lot of fun. I happen to be a fan of both Game of Thrones and social deduction games, so it's no surprise that I have enjoyed playing it, and we've battled it quite a bit here. Both in play testing in anticipation of releasing the product, and then now that it was released, we were able to snag a copy at PAX actually, and have put it into heavy rotation in our board game nights. So, would highly recommend the game.
Absolutely. And speaking of other things that are coming out, Dark Frontier releases this Thursday, so it's time for another preview card. Let's welcome to the stage Flash Grenade.
I feel like it should have come in with some kind of animation. Flash Grenade is a fast spell, gives enemy units and relic weapons -2 strength this turn. This can lead to some pretty embarrassing combats for your opponent.
Yeah, so this is tactically something that's going to be really useful for players, maybe perhaps out of the market, maybe in a spell-heavy strategy. This is close to an effect that is just going to wipe out all of the damage that would be dealt to you this turn. So if you're playing a heavy card draw controlling strategy and you want to just be able to devote very little power resources to stopping your opponent, a card like Flash Grenade will deal with multiple threats for a turn just for 1 power.
And it's the sort of thing too where your opponent might pick some fights that end up being ill-advised. They don't know the flash grenade is coming. They attack with their relic weapon, perhaps their clandestine shotgun into your 3 health unit. Bam, flash grenade, and all of a sudden they're the one on the losing side of that. And of course, it does stick around for combat as well. So, Flash Grenade coming out soon. Dark Frontier is releasing this Thursday. Looks like we've got a match too. So why don't we head down to the match and see who's going to advance to the top 4. Welcome to Top 8 match here. I'm Luis Vargas here with Andrew Beckstrom. We're watching hashtag Battle It Out against Alicia Kills. Alicia Kills on Praxis and hashtag on Huru Flyers. Gonna leverage those Shelterwing Riders and Amelie Cloud Marshals in order to kind of try to overpower this Praxis deck, though. Alicia is on the board first with Psycholis getting in for a cool 5 points of damage.
Yeah, hashtag playing with the recently nerfed Shelterwing Rider. Used to be a 5/5 when it came into play. Now only a 5/4. Actually reverting it to the stats that it was when it was originally printed. Unfortunately for Alicia Kills, another Gunrunner off the top doesn't get them the 5th power they need to be able to start deploying their other Gunrunner. Nonetheless, they still have a Sandstorm Titan and a Daria Warrior Poet for this turn.
And I believe that Alicia did not pledge this game. Those Gunrunners are not. Well, we'll see when they're able to be cast.
Yeah.
How strong,
we'll check it out. We missed the first couple turns of this game. But Amelie Cloud Marshal on the other side for hashtag is a fantastic unit. They're going to pass up on this turn instead of a Vanquisher's Blade to kill the Sandstorm Titan and free their units up to fly again. And instead of leaving that Shelterwing Rider back to block the Tangelos, they just crash in for 7 points of damage.
This is straight up a race. Both players just running past each other. Alicia with double torch in hand is in a pretty good position for that. See what hashtag can muster. They're even a primal influence short of being able to play that Cobalt Wasteland and get a face Aegis, which certainly would help against Torch.
Opting again not to deploy the Amelie Cloud Marshal. Valkyrie Enforcer comes down, silences Daria Warrior Poet, so she no longer has Deadly or Berserk. And the third Gunrunner of the game comes down for her Alicia kills, but still missing that 5th power to be able to play any of them.
Yeah, and this is unfortunate for Alicia because even with double Torch in hand, this sequence of attacks, you know, it actually is going to work out fairly well given that if the Sheltering Rider blocked the Daria, then we might see some action. But blocking Psycholis is a much safer play, and it's going to work out much better for hashtag because Alicia can play one Torch to remove the Aegis and knock Sheltering Rider down to a 2/6, but that's not really going to help given the current situation.
So Alicia kills, opting to not use the torches on the face, instead going after the Sheltering Rider and finishing off rather than putting hashtag down to 1. Finally, Amelie Cloud Marshal comes down 4/8 flying body, and it'll make Valkyries every turn when it attacks. Really hard for this Praxis tech to attack through something like that.
And Alicia stuck on 4 power with 4 5-drops in hand, and boom, that'll do it. Just the turn or two of being stuck on 4 really did kind of come back to bite Alicia, and hashtag is up a really quick game.
Yeah, an impressive showing from the Huru side of things. Playing with some card choices we haven't seen in a while from them. They were playing with Defiance. Not something you always see from a Huru Flyer strategy. And they had Amelies. And because those cards match up so great against Praxis, the Defiance is taking care of the Amaranth Stingers and the Teacher of Humilities. And then Amelie, as you saw it come down, Alicia had some cards in hand that were ready to play and ready to go once they hit the 5th power, but they just knew there was those cards lined up so poorly against Amelie.
Yeah, Amelie is one of those cards that does run away or fly away with the game as soon as they can get even one attack in.
So as we head into Game 2, the Praxis player will be looking to get off to a fast start because they understand that this Huru deck has come out pretty well teched against Praxis, and it's cool to see players be able to evolve and adapt their decks no matter what they're playing against.
Yeah, Vanquisher's Blade goes a long way. Card is quite powerful when it's got a lot of targets in the Praxis deck. No shortage of things to cut down with the Vanquisher's Blade there.
And this is really a matchup where the stats matter on that card. Just a +2/+2 bonus to one of your units takes it out of the range of being a chump block to maybe just straight eating the Praxis unit that would attack otherwise.
Yeah. Alrighty, it looks like Game 2 is ready, so let's head back on down. Alrighty, welcome to Game 2. Hashtag up a game here with their Hoodoo Flyers deck. Facing off against Alicia kills on Praxis and deciding what to pledge. Looks like Gunrunner getting pledged on turn 1, setting up for turn 3 Amaranth Stinger, turn 4 Psycholis, which is a fine start on the play here.
Hashtag will really be put to the test on their turn 2. They could deploy a Dusk Raider, or they could just hold up a Defiance in anticipation of a turn 3 Amaranth Stinger.
Alicia finding a Teacher of Humility on top of their deck on turn 3, not the turn you want it, and looks like hashtag is going to leave up Defiance, showing a good understanding of kind of how this metagame works, and also guaranteeing the next couple turns of power drops. So looks like Alicia is going to slow play for a turn, also aware of what's going on.
I love this leveling. So neither player willing to sort of play into the other one's core game plan for how they want the first couple turns to go. Instead, a little bit of slow rolling. Passing back to hashtag, they have the option this turn of holding up 2 Defiances or deploying this Dusk Raider and still having up potentially 1 Defiance.
Yeah, it is a tough decision. Looks like hashtag is going to go with the Dusk Raider play. Also lets them play their banner undepleted here. So ends up being a nice turn, though. Alicia might take the opportunity to sneak in an Amaranth Stinger. Looks like Alicia's just going to go for Psycholis, Burning Sand.
Go for the big one.
And just slam with both. What does walk right into Defiance on Teacher of Humility, and that'll leave hashtag taking 5, but not getting any disciplinary weights put on them.
Disciplinary weights particularly potent when it's Nightfall, thanks to the Dusk Raider. Turn 4 play is just going to be a Vanquish instead of dropping the Sheltering Rider. Critically, they still have up the power for the second Defiance in their hand after they crunch in for 2 with their own Dusk Raider.
And Glasshopper, we know, will pick up a Gunrunner, which can't be played this turn. All right, here comes the Aurelian Merchant. In anticipation, picking up that Sandstorm Scarf. Alicia Kills is ready to face off any number of flying units.
What do you make of the positioning by grabbing the Scarf there by Alicia Kills?
It kind of indicates what game Alicia's looking to play, because flying only really matters, your opponent's flyers only matter when you're blocking when it comes to Sandstorm Scarf. So that indicates Alicia sees this game going long enough where they're looking to make some blocks.
Yeah, I'm just troubled for Alicia. I don't know if the blocking game is what I want to be doing against this Peru deck, but then again, I'm well aware that Hashtag has multiple Korriviat Palaces waiting to go once they hit their 6 power. So blocking is going to be a lot harder against that. Sheltering Rider comes down. Now a Torch off the top. Amaranth Stinger. Well, this is going to be a bit of a gambit here. So we'll see a block by Sheltering Rider, and now they're priced into the Shugo standard, and this is going to be back-breaking.
Oh, Defiance takes out the Stinger, takes out the Shugo tactic, wastes Alicia's basically whole turn. So picking up a 2-for-1 and you spent 1 power and they spent 5 and 2 cards, that is just, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that swings games, and Hashtag is now firmly far ahead thanks to that sequence of plays.
Thankfully for Alicia, Hashtag misses again on the 6 power. Going to only be able to deploy a merchant. Both the merchants in their hand are Berserk merchants right now, thanks to the Dusk Raider being in play when they were drawn. And they just cash in a Korriviat Palace for a banner, electing not to play the merchant since they've already got the palace they want in hand.
Well, Glasshopper and the Gunrunner is going to help, though. Gunrunner gives Alicia, at this point, a solid blocker, and then can take out either the Dusk Raider or the merchant right away with their shotgun.
That Alicia kills. They're going to try to, counterattack here. They throw down a Sakalis. They've got a torch in hand, so they're hoping they can chain together some damage here. Hashtag happy to just take it. They've got some life total to give away. A torch finishes off the Dusk Raider. And there we go. A Vanquisher's Blade off the top. This is getting worse by the moment for Alicia kills.
Oh yeah, Vanquisher's Blade on the Geneb Merchant makes it into a 4/4 Berserk now. Can Berserk, threatening 13 points of damage, so Alicia is obliged to put one of these cards in harm's way. So chumping up the Glasshopper, that only saves 4 points of damage, though, thanks to Berserk, and that's going to drop Alicia kills to 4, facing down 2 lethal threats, and Gunrunner
Was that
is
the
a
draw
start.
they needed? I mean, they got to get really lucky here. But if they can manage to pull some Scorpion Traps off the deck, this could absolutely pull them back into this.
Oh man, this is running a big risk. All right, so here goes some Scorpion Traps. Top 20 cards, 5 trips.
There's one off the top.
All right.
There's 2 off the top.
Wow. All right. Well, Alicia kills, played to their outs perfectly, and hit double Scorpion Trap. That blocks both of Hashtag's units here. And this game has kind of turned around. I mean, Hashtag's still clearly ahead here, but the double Scorpion Trap.
A brilliant vision of austerity. Gonna remove that scarf.
Winchest Merchant for Vision of Austerity. Having the vision, that means that the Sheltering Rider can come in for lethal, but oh man, that double Scorpion Trap was for naught, and Hashtag advances into our top 4. That was awesome.
Well played by Hashtag. I really like the way that they set that game up. Doing a great job until that last possible moment of ever making sure an Amaranth Stinger got in. But even when it did, they had the answer. So
yeah.
Kudos to them.
that was awesome. So congratulations to Hashtag for making top 4, and Alicia kills for making top 8. Their journey ends there. But we're going to be moving on. We're taking a look at what other games are being played here, and we've got a couple matches going. It looks like we've got another game. So let's head on down for another top 8 game. Alrighty, welcome to our top 8. We've got Manu S facing off against Spifferific here. And Manu S on this Stone Scar build that we've seen a number of players playing, all from the same team, it looks like. Looks like trading off a Black Hole War Leader for Psycholis, and a pretty close game here, as these tend to be, but that Ixtun Merchant's got some good options here. Oh man, Flames. If the game goes long, Flamestoker is a really good way to get damage through. Alright, so they're gonna attack their Ixtun Merchant into Dario using Vara's favor to finish it off, and then play Ixtun Merchant, cash in that power. It might actually be time for the Flamestoker.
I think Flame Blast, you're so close to kill. So Flame Blast will actually be the choice, much as Luis is trying to tempt them into getting Flamestoker.
I think it was time for the Flamestoker. Look, Flame Blast might be lethal this turn, but I think it might be time for the Flamestoker. All right, Manu S showing more wisdom than I possess, getting the Flame Blast, attacking with the Ixtun Merchant, and finishing things off, advancing to a top 4 4 here. Manu S, one of the more prolific Eternal content creators, and always a good deck builder. So this Stone Scar deck that he and his team look like they've come up with, quite effective. I mean, he's gotten him to the top 4. The deck presumably is great. I mean, if it got Iliac into the top 64, so
Black Hole War Leaders look great. It's some cool innovation.
yeah, a lot of recently buffed cards, and that will advance Manu S into the top 4. We have 2 of our top 4 set. We've got a couple more matches still battling here, so we're going to be heading down just momentarily here. It looks like the players are battling, so let's get to it. Alrighty, welcome to our top 8 here. Illian, who we saw defeat Stone Scar last round, playing the Praxis Mirror here, and down a game, but attacking with quite a potent squad. Double Emerald Stinger, one of which hasn't used its Infiltrate yet. Got an Obelisk there ready to go, and a huge Sandstorm Titan. Overmaster's going to take all the damage and just, kind of try to set up lethal here. I think that Scorpion Trap might be critical here. Torch! Okay, well, that will do it. Overmaster knocks Illion out, and the Overmaster, another well-known Eternal player, advancing into the top 4. This top 4 is looking like it's going to be pretty stacked.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see who gets to come out on top. I actually think the Overmaster had it. They had that nice little deadly combo from Daria onto Sakalis, but, nothing wrong with finishing the game off with a torch.
I think that regardless of how you get there, despite what some may say, it's not about the journey. It's about the destination.
Okay. No spoilers in this chat. All right. Well, I think that's it for it. We've got our top 4 locked up, and we've got some big names. The Overmaster, Manu S. So we'll see who gets to come out on top. Who's going to punch their ticket for Worlds today? We're going to throw it to a break, and we'll be back real soon with some more previews and some top 4 action.
Welcome back to the top 4 of this Eternal Championship qualifier. I'm Luis Vargas here with Patrick Chapin, and we are now into the matches that each determine someone who gets to qualify for Worlds. So each of these top 4 matches will determine a finalist. The players today are playing for quite a bit of money, $2,000 for first, $1,000 for second. At this point in the top 4, they've locked up $500 each. But the top 2 players also qualify for Worlds, so each of these top 4 matches are definitely high stakes.
Yeah, and obviously the qualifications for Worlds carries with it not only the financial prize from Worlds itself, but also the glory. You know?
Yeah, I mean you have players here who are really looking to make a name for themselves, battling Eternal. We're seeing a lot of repeats. You know, one of the things I've loved most about running these ECQs, we haven't even gotten to Worlds yet, but we're seeing a lot of players show up in the top 64 over and over again. And I really like seeing that, developing of a competitive player base where we see a lot of people putting a lot of time and effort into it. Almost every week, some team gets multiple entrants into the top 64 with the deck they've tuned for that week. This week that deck was like Stone Scar, where we had Manu S here in the top 4, Iliac A also playing it. We had, last week we had Zach Hill and Gerger both playing this like Huru control deck that came pretty close, didn't quite close it. So it's really interesting to see kind of how these organized teams also tend to fare, while there's also plenty of people who know what they're doing and good challengers, kind of battling it out as well.
Yeah, I mean, seeing such a great showing from a lot of the recognizable figures in the community who've been streaming and talking theory about the game and helping develop decks throughout the game's life, seeing so many of them succeed so much in the last, basically all these ECQs. Yeah. It's it definitely bodes well for the competitive scene of Eternal.
Yeah, it shows that these people can kind of back up their strategy articles, and their often bold claims with good finishes, which I think it always helps kind of practicing what you preach.
Yeah, and obviously Eternal has a landscape that's constantly changing.
Yeah,
you can't just rest on your laurels, build one good deck, and ride it forever. The landscape's just changing so much from month to month and set to set.
Yeah, and we've really seen that reward players who have picked up like Stone Scar this week, or some of the first innovators of Praxis Pledge have really gotten rewarded for doing that. And even as sometimes the decks get more popular, sometimes they get less. Kind of keeping up with all that is a really important skill when you're trying to do well in these events.
Yep. So throughout today, we've seen quite a few different decks already. Kind of excited to see the top 4 here. This entire top 8, though, is really stacked. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been really impressed. It's funny because we get the deck lists on Saturday night, and you start looking through like, oh, I recognize that name, I recognize that name, I recognize that name. So I always enjoy seeing kind of who ends up making the top 64. Here we can take a look at our bracket. Currently left, we've got hashtag against Manu S and Tony G, another noted Eternal content creator, against the Overmaster. So people who follow the Eternal competitive scene, who are all active on like Discord or Reddit, they're gonna recognize a lot of these names.
Oh yeah. Oh, hello.
Well, look what just blinked in. We had a preview card ready, and it looks like I understand Michael Jacob, our producer. He's like, look, I gotta listen to you guys talk all day. Let's just get a move on. He puts the card up on the screen. We talk about the card. So here we've got Blink. It's a 3-cost flash spell. In time. It puts units to its owner's hand. Also has a warp. So warp is a mechanic that we featured in a number of sets now, which it's revealed to just you if it's the top card of your deck, and you can play it from there.
Yeah, and the ability to have something like Blink be able to protect you means that even if you have no cards in your hand, your opponent can't feel that safe. Like it's possible that they could try to attack and before they even blink.
Oh, whenever we make fast blink cards, whether they have ambush or fast spells or anything, the dream is always that someone sitting there on no hands, like I got nothing. You attack and they're like wham, right off the top, getting some blink action going.
Oh yeah, and one of the things I like about Blink in particular is how much you can use it to slow down an enemy attack, but you can also use it on your own units, being able to there's quite a, I mean, I am not above blinking my Heart of the Vault.
No.
Keep that going.
Yeah, and as you put more units with powerful summons into your deck, then Blink gets a lot more valuable, and there's a lot of ways to use this to dodge removal spells, or to get into unfavorable blocks, or even get into a situation where your opponent is like playing a sweeper and you're just like blink, and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of cards back in your hand.
Yeah, and besides, you never know. Maybe some deck will end up with like glasshoppers and gun runners and just want to blink its Daria later to give everybody berserk. You never know. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things you could potentially blink if such a deck ever came
Yeah,
along.
and we're excited to keep revealing Dark Frontier cards. It's not the last spoiler of the day, and we've got the actual set coming out just this coming Thursday. So the Frontier will in fact change, or
And get darker.
yeah, definitely, or change or alter or some other word that connotates a changing of states as the new set is released. So this is our latest preview, but of course stay tuned for more. So let's see, we're going to be kicking things off, I believe, with the Manu S hashtag match first. Is what it looks like. All right, so we're going to get that started, and we're gonna dive into this top 4 here as the players compete for one of the last slots. I do want to let people know that we've got a couple more events coming up. If you finished in the top 100 in draft over the last 6 months or ranked over the last 6 months, there's challenges for you. There's the draft challenge and the rank challenge, both of which the winners will qualify for Worlds. So these are going to be somewhat large tournaments, given you had to finish in the top 100 over the last 6 months, but it is one of your last opportunities to qualify for Worlds. And we have the ECQ showdown, where the top 32 players on ECQ points, which at the conclusion of this tournament we will know that list, will get to compete for another slot at Worlds. One note, as people look at the ECQ point standings, if a player on the standings is qualified for Worlds, for example, the Collector has accumulated a lot of ECQ points, they will be, well, they've collected a bunch. They will be passed down. Those players will not be eligible to play because they already have Worlds invite. So we want the tournament to be 32 people who are not invited to Worlds. So if you end up 33rd or 34th before we've had a chance to kind of look at that list, if you're just looking at the points as they stand, keep in mind that as those players potentially find qualifications for Worlds, we will be kind of passing their slots down.
Yep. And I just enjoyed having 3 different last chance qualifiers of sorts.
Yeah.
From different dimensions, rewarding a variety of different skill sets.
Yeah. So it gives you some opportunities to make it there, regardless of which game mode you find yourself enjoying the most. So it looks like our players are ready. So let's get to our top 4 match and find out who our first player this weekend will be to qualify for Worlds. All right, we've got Manu S against hashtag here. Manu S on Stone Scar decides to redraw that hand and finds it looks like a much better hand with Shakedown and Desecrate as early interaction than Statuary Maiden as Dark Return as threats. Facing off against hashtag, who's on kind of Duskrider or bust at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, hashtag's got at least some reasonable opening cards, but they really need to draw a little bit more, like a little bit bigger of threats to really make this an opening that has any hope of beating a Statuary Maiden.
And Statuary Maiden, at least in its base form, is immune to both Vanquish and Vanquisher's Blade. And one of the strengths of cards like Shakedown, Manu S knows about that Vanquish and Vanquisher's Blade now. Manu S is not going to be throwing cudgels onto Statuary Maiden unless he's well aware of when that Vanquish wants to hit. Poaching a pretty good draw, though, for hashtag.
Yeah, definitely going to draw the Desecrate, and this is definitely one of the advantages the Desecrate has over a lot of its peers like In Cold Blood or Death Strike. Being able to come down so early, you do take some damage, but it's well worth it given how much every hit from Hojun is so brutal.
And, even though this Huru deck does attack your health total, it's not exactly an aggro deck. You can take a couple hits early from Desecrates and not feel it that badly, because when the Huru deck starts hitting you, it hits you for fairly large chunks of damage.
Yeah. And that, in particular, when you get hit by the Palace. But I think here we're going to see a decision between Shelterwing Rider and Choreo of Palace, depending on does hashtag want to... Yep, it looks like hashtag does want to actually just try to press the early advantage. What do you think of getting the Shelterwing Rider here?
It gives you the opportunity to curve out a lot more nicely than waiting till 6. It's a little soft to basically enter your removal spell, because even though Aegis protects the Shelterwing Rider, of course, without the Aegis, it doesn't actually deal that much damage. So, as it turns out, Manu S doesn't have a good way to punish the Shelterwing Rider. Obliterate is an expensive way to go about things. So it seems like it's working out, and you really can't fall too far behind on board in this matchup.
Now we see some of that Shelterwing Rider dropping to a 5/4 instead of 5/5 really impact things, allowing the elf to get in there for 4 and a Warcry bonus.
Yeah, and Rista also dodges Vanquish quite nicely. It looks like hashtag is stuck with multiple removal spells that have no good targets, even though Manu S is aware that Argent Port Instigator is not the most reliable threat given the situation.
And choosing to go after the Winchest Merchant instead of the Shelterwing Rider means that Manu S can keep the pressure on and just make it a race. It's kind of a tight race, though.
Yeah, especially since hashtag just drew another Shelterwing Rider. Now, hashtag has to decide, do you want to deploy the Vanquisher's Blade as just 2 extra damage here? It doesn't sound that bad.
The advantage to waiting, though, is that if you can get the 2 extra damage next turn anyway, that's still exactly enough, right?
Yeah,
it's tough, though.
Either way, an unimpeded Shelterwing Rider hit ends the game, whether you put it on Blade here now or later. But if you think that you're going to be running this plan anyway, I guess just toss it on, hit for 7, pass the turn, and now... Okay, so Manu S drew a torch. So at this point, Manu S can prompt a block with that Stone Cudgel, or at least if hashtag doesn't block, then Manu S wins on the spot because of torch, assuming playing a power for Rista and playing a Cudgel on one of the units.
Yeah, and since either one of Manu S's units will trade with that Shelterwing Rider, the torch can actually keep him alive by going after the big Shelterwing Rider, and there we see one of the real big advantages of your line with the Vanquisher's Blade already down, meaning that the Shelterwing Rider can at least keep a little bit of pressure on.
Yeah, draw a Dusk Raider for lethal Nightfall. I guess we're not quite there yet, are we?
But regardless, Manu S has definitely got some real serious pressure here, and by lining up both of these, that Shelterwing Rider's got to actually trade with Rista, or else Manu S will just take this right out.
I mean, there's a chance hashtag just takes the 8, plays to lose to torch, but win on board. Because imagine if hashtag thinks Manu S has a torch, you're already in a ton of trouble because if you block, your other Shelterwing isn't lethal. I think there's a really strong argument for just taking 8 and just assuming you can't beat a torch.
Well, with Manu S at 5, the other Shelterwing's still enough, right? Or just in the event that the Manu S actually has a torch, right?
Yeah.
I see.
So
Yep.
it looks like hashtag just takes the damage, which actually it would have been my inclination as well, given that torch would have put hashtag in such a bad spot. But either way, Manu S is happy. Manu S ends up a game here in this top 4, is 1 game away from qualifying for Worlds, and I know he's put a ton of effort into it over the course of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a strategy that Manu S was talking about bringing back with Stone Scar. Manu S is always at the cutting edge of Eternal tech, though, and has been making lots of decks over the last 6 months. Not surprising to see piloting, one of the breakout decks of this weekend.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see such a mix of different decks in the top 4 here. Not as much Praxis Pledge as people were afraid of.
Yeah, that was one of the most popular, or was by far the most popular deck coming in. It was a lot of the talk of the tournament. It looks like the numbers have kind of leveled out some as the people whose decks are built to prey on that deck have risen to the top, which tends to be what happens if there's a really established winner's metagame.
Yeah, I mean, everybody here we're seeing very well equipped for Praxis, and it looks like we're ready for game 2.
All right, let's head on down. Alright, welcome to game 2 here. Hashtag down a game against Manu S, with hashtag on Huru Flyers and Manu S on kind of Stone Scar mid. Manu S deciding whether or not to keep a Black Hall War Leader off of a Scout here, and it looks like he did end up keeping it. We'll see what happens next turn. Oh, it looks like he did not.
Yeah, I don't mind that ship to the bottom.
Yeah.
The use of Argentport Instigator as your 2-drop anyway is at least decent, and you want to make sure that you find that 4th power in a hurry. Obviously, Vara's favor can get it slow, but you really want to be able to actually play these 4s on turn 4 without having to take a turn off on turn 2 or 3. And you also don't want to have that Ixta Merchant have to get suboptimal targets. I think you really want to focus on getting some removal here to keep the pressure on, because Statuary Maiden and Vara is already such a great combination if you can just support them.
Meanwhile, you see hashtag play Hojan, but missed their 3rd power drop, so Manu S wastes no time. Vara's favor getting that Hojan off the board. Doesn't not want to risk hashtag finding a way to proc that Renown and get another sigil. So hashtag stuck on 2 here and in a really bad spot.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is one of the risks of counting on merchants as part of your power fixing. You know, one of the big advantages to the pledge style compared to this more aggro style is the ability to get that extra redundancy in your power fixing early from pledging the Courier or Anya or anything like that.
Yeah, and at this point, you know, just going Hojan go and not being able to do anything else is going to leave you in such a tough spot when Manu S is having efficient turns. Look at even that Ixta Merchant getting a 1-cost Flame Blast to take out that Hojan. Lets Manu S advance his board while also killing Hojan, though hashtag did find a crest here, which finds another sigil, so at least hashtag's going to be able to make some power drops over the next couple turns.
Yeah, and with Defiance to help defend themselves, it's not, you know, it's not as hopeless as the board might seem. You know, taking down one of these 2 attackers right now, they're still really behind the gun because Statuary Maiden and Vara are a couple of powerful leftovers, and a Desecrate means that blocking ain't it. But at least hashtag is hitting their drops now.
Hashtag looking at a market with a Sheltering Rider and a Hoodoo Banner, both some kind of appealing grabs. If they wanted to go ahead and play their Winchest Merchant, whatever they play is likely to eat a removal spell, and I think they're aware of that, so they're going to look to get a little bag out of their play as well. And one of the things that have looked really ineffective in this match are Vanquishes and Vanquisher's Blades. Manu S just is aware of them, both thanks to deck lists and cards like Sabotage, and at no point have we seen Manu S really walk into those cards. In fact, hashtag picks up a Vanquish here, and if Manu S, you know, makes a line of play that involves Statuary Maiden, that Vanquish is not going to have any relevant targets.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's so smart of Manu S leading with the Statuary Maiden instead of the Vara, making sure that any sort of Vanquisher's Blade Vanquish action isn't as good. But here we do see the Cudgel come down just because this is enough pressure that if hashtag spends the turn killing the Ixta Merchant, the Statuary Maiden can still kill them. They're going to need to make 2 big plays in the same turn.
Yep, and Valkyrie Enforcer will not do it. Vanquish is going to take out the Ixta Merchant. Desecrate's going to take out the Valkyrie Enforcer, and Statuary Maiden is going to send Manu S to Worlds. Manu S wasting no time here, playing the Vara. Well, no, never mind.
Wasting no time, he says.
Manu S wasting excessive amounts of time here, playing Vara, desecrating that Valkyrie Enforcer, and sending in the Statuary Maiden, advancing to Worlds. Congratulations to Manu S for making a top 2 finish here. Still gets to play for $1,000 in the finals, but got to be a big weight off your shoulders to know that you qualified for Worlds.
Oh yeah. I mean, Manu S is definitely a person who's made it clear how important Worlds is to him. Anyway, I mean, he's been on the grind hard, and great to see. You know, great finish, breakout deck of the weekend, real successful showing. Just looking at the numbers, this Stone Scar deck. They did a great job on tuning this, taking, you know, the recent changes to the metagame and figuring out real rapidly how to be 1 step ahead of everybody else. And this is not the Stone Scar deck.
You got to move 4 steps behind to be 1 step ahead.
Yes.
You know, they bring back set 1 Stone Scar, and well, they've been rewarded for that. You know, anytime you get someone into the finals, you got to consider it a successful weekend, and with multiple people in the top 64 as well, that is a great showing. So congratulations to Manu S for making it there to the finals, and hashtag congratulations for making it to top 4. Fell just short of qualifying for Worlds, but you know, potentially picked up enough ECQ points to play. We'll see how that all breaks down. Okay, so we've got another top 4 match coming up. That'll do it for Patrick's role in the broadcast today. Hope you all enjoyed his commentary. I know I certainly did. And so we'll be back in just a couple minutes for the second top 4 match and then the finals. Everyone, welcome back to the top 4 of this Eternal Championship qualifier. I'm Scott Vargas, and here doing a wonderful job of being physically present is Andrew Beckstrom. You're doing great. And we've got a top 4 match here, the winner of which will qualify for the World Championship and get to play in the finals for a $2,000 first place prize. So a big match. You know, every single time we get to one of these top 4 matches, it is the highest stakes of Eternal that player has ever played, because no one in order to be in that match, I guess, until you get someone who's in the match once again. But I don't think we have any repeat top 4 competitors. In any case, we here are about to watch this match. But before we get to it, we have a preview card ready for you. What did you call it? Spiteful Strike?
We're going to be looking at Spiteful Strike. It is an exciting new Shadow fast spell, dropping in Dark Frontier this Thursday. For just 1 cost, you get to give a unit +2/+1 lifesteal and quick draw this turn. And as I alluded to earlier, this is pretty nice to put on a Kira.
That's a good combo with Kira. You know, she's going to go ahead and keep all of those things forever, becoming a 4/3 lifesteal quick draw. But even just on its face, 1 cost for +2/+1 lifesteal and quick draw as a fast spell, that's a potent combat trick.
Yeah. It helps get through lots of different size units, and really makes a difference, because Shadow has not had a 1-cost spell of this power in quite some time. Back in the day, Rapid Shot originally costed 1 shot before it was live balance, and it's exciting to see what players will do with such a new potent option in that space.
Yeah, imagine, you know, your 4-drop gets blocked by their 4-drop. Often this will kill theirs and you know, leave yours alive while also getting you 4 to 6 health. That's a pretty big swing for just 1 power.
Yeah, a huge boost in flexibility for Shadow aggro decks. The problems you're always trying to deal with those decks are, how do you not get outraced by the Fire aggro decks, while how do you not get brickwalled by the Moonstone Vanguards and the Sandstorm Titans of the world?
And this has a combination of utility against, you know, aggro and mid-range alike. So Spiteful Strike, a really exciting combat trick from Dark Frontiers, which is releasing this Thursday. We've got you know, our next expansion just coming. We're right at the cusp of it coming out here.
All the files all locked and ready to go. All that's left is to turn the lights on. So we're excited, just as you are, to play with it and to see what you're going to be doing with it in the upcoming tournaments that we have coming up with.
Yep. All right, so we are getting the players ready here for our top 4 match, and we've got kind of a classic matchup. We've got Praxis mid-range facing off against Fire Justice Shadow. Control here, Tony G on FJS and the Overmaster on Praxis. Who do you think is advantaged in this matchup?
It's tough to say. I wouldn't want to say anybody is too close. It's going to come down a lot to who can navigate this better. Both these players are very experienced. I know I've seen them do quite well in the community tournament scene for a while now. Both have put up great finishes on our ranked ladder for a while. So I don't want to make too many predictions that I'll look foolish about later. I'm just excited to see what will happen.
That is the job, though, is to make predictions that you'll look foolish about later.
Okay. Well, I predict that we're going to see a great match, and I'm going to have a lot of fun watching it.
Wow, that's a hard-hitting commentary here from Andrew Beckstrom, but not unsurprising. So we've got our match ready. So our players are ready. Let's head down, and I will spare you any further commentary on the commentary. All right, welcome to our top 4 match here. Tony G kicking things off with a Crest, Overmaster, presumably pledging on turn 1. At least that is the goal with the Praxis deck. And starting off with a turn 3 Stinger or Aurelian Merchant. Oh, but when the gates are down, you know, when they just use a treasure on turn 2, we're gonna see a Stinger here.
Yeah, they're feeling good about themselves right now, the Overmaster. Tony G is playing with a bunch of copies of Defiance, but they don't have one in their hand, and they don't have any power to play it if they did. Hammer Stinger comes in, putting those Scorpion Chaps into the deck, and it's nice getting them in so early, because you know that the Winchest deck isn't going to kill you. And if you're lucky, you'll get one right away.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. 3 cost, 2/4, plus a 1/1 deadly, plus additional Scorpion equity in the future. So a really good start for the Overmaster, kind of the start they're looking for. Though, and that's kind of why Andrew Beckstrom predicted that Praxis was a heavy favorite here and was going to win very easily.
We see Tony G going and grabbing the Harsh Roll right away with this first Smuggler. This isn't really the kind of board you're going to use the Harsh Smuggler or the Harsh Roll on yet, but they know that the Praxis deck is going to deploy some more big units. They know there's going to be Scorpions coming out, and having that in their back pocket ready to go when the moment's right is going to be nice. Zuberi comes down, for the Overmaster, and that's a piece of tech that we haven't seen from most of the Praxis players.
It's going to give the Overmaster's top unit +4 strength because Tony G's not in a position to get rid of it. Though I suspect next turn we're going to see a harsh roll. Look at all this action going on here. This is what the FGS deck kind of needs to do. They spend their first couple turns casting Seek Powers and Treasure Troves and playing their crests, but it just means you get to roll out powerful threats for almost the entire rest of the game.
The Overmaster knows exactly what they're drawing next turn with the Heart of the Vault on top of their deck, and it'll be interesting how they decide to navigate this situation. Do they want to commit any more resources? Well, probably not. They're smart enough to know that Tony G's got Harsh Roll in their deck, or in their hand, thanks to the Smuggler. They know it's a really good card in this matchup. Well, they're not going to risk the Scorpion. It looks like they might just be attacking for 6 here.
Yeah, and Zuberi is going to go ahead and make that Heart of the Vault into even more of a potent threat. Not that that's entirely necessary.
And if the Overmaster had any doubts before about an incoming Harsh Roll, all have been erased by this early chump block by that Hidden Road Smuggler.
Yeah. Overmaster playing a Shugo standard. There's a potential argument for Aurelian Merchant if you don't care about the body and you want to get the marketing out of the way. So looks like Overmaster going to swap out likely that Torch here, potentially for like a Glasshopper.
I like this play. Torches of low value in this matchup. Most of the important units from the Winchester deck are big, and you know that your power is going to be tied up for the next couple of turns by these Heart of the Vaults that are coming, so it's a good time to get that out of the way.
Oh, the Glasshopper also having double damage thanks to Inspire from Zuberi there. All right, so there goes that harsh roll that pretty much everyone knew was coming, but the Overmaster's got a backup plan, and it involves playing some Hearts of the Vault. First one comes down, it's going to knock Tony G down to 19. Oh, and draw 0-cost Teacher of Humility. Sure, why not?
That Teacher of Humility was secretly an amazing rep because it would mean that they had something to sacrifice to the bar, which would otherwise do a great job of stonewalling the Heart of the Vault.
Well, they had a Scorpion, too.
So after the Scorpion and the Teacher of Humility, the next Smuggler goes and picks up a Vanquish to clear things out. Ooh, so now what do you do if you're the Overmaster? Because you could ensure that this Teacher of Humility comes in with this Purify. Tony G is sandbagging a Torch, though.
Yeah, Heart of the Vault also does the same, though that Torch is going to be pointed at that Teacher of Humility just in case. Heart of the Vault eats another Smuggler there. Scorpion gets in for a cool one, but Psychologist the Burning Sand is a pretty good draw for the Overmaster. And yeah, that Scorpion's really coming in handy because Tony G keeps drawing other removal, but if Tony G ever ran out, that Vara, would be something that would be threatening, except that Scorpion can stand in the way of Vara getting her bonus.
Desecrate takes down the Heart of the Vault. Tony G's down to 15.
We might see double Psychologist this turn. Can Overmaster hit for 10 here? This is plus the Scorpion. This is yeah they can. This is awesome.
Wow, amazing. So the one Psychologist is only costing 1 thanks to Heart of the Vault and the Glasshopper, and the other one only costs 3 thanks to Glasshopper. So just an incredible amount of charge damage coming down. Thankfully, Defiance is going to be able to kill one of the Psychologists. Normally it can't. Glasshopper's cost reduction puts it in range where it just straight up dies as opposed to being stunned.
Still a good turn for the Overmaster, but that Defiance was a critical draw. Tony G would be at 4, facing down 4 units, instead of being at 9, facing down 3. So removal spells at the right time is quite critical in pulling ahead here.
So decision now for the Overmaster. They elect to sacrifice the Scorpion. Keep that bar nice and non-deadly and small. Red Canyon Smuggler goes and fetches out a Zoe, which had gotten put into the market earlier thanks to the Hidden Road Smuggler.
All right, so now we've got Overmaster on, still an efficient turn. Purify could potentially take out the Red Canyon Smuggler, but would still leave a Vara there ready to block that Grasshopper. So yeah, it might be fine to Purify the Red Canyon Smuggler and hit with Psychologist, but then you end up in a spot where Vara could potentially attack you back. What would your inclination be?
This is tricky. I think I would Purify the Smuggler and play this Stinger and attack with everything, and put. The question is, do you attack with everything? Do you allow the Vara to just have a bounce off blocked on the Stinger? On the one hand, it lets the Psychologist get in and not die, but on the other hand, you're just sort of allowing Tony G to just make an easy block with no amount of Scorpions going in and not too much life loss. Wow, what a creative play. So we've got Purify on Vara, removing the lifesteal. They are shoving in. They are trying to finish this off fast. So we see Tangelos get in for a bunch. We see the Stinger trade with the Red Canyon Smuggler. The Overmaster is all in. They've got Tony G down to 3.
They're all in on drawing torch here.
Yes. Vara comes down. I think we will see another sacrifice to keep this from gaining too much health too fast. Yeah.
All right, here it comes. Overmaster's got one turn. Oh, time sigil. That's not going to do it.
Scorpion Trap is a huge draw. It means that the Vara can't get in so easily.
Yeah, though if I'm the Overmaster, I'm still just sending immediately. You don't want to lose the game to torch, and Tony G does in fact send in the Vara, trades off, and then now I suspect that Show is gonna
makes a lot of sense.
Get mixed up. Looks like Show gets traded for another Show just to get extra treasure equity. In comes Vara, and Overmaster. Game is slipping out of their grasp here.
Gunrunner does some work. It'll eat the Red Canyon Smuggler, and the 4-2 body trades with Vara, but at the cost of allowing Tony G to gain even more health. And now it's, as they say, showtime once this trade happens.
Yeah, this is getting close. So
wow, no trades.
Overmaster just took the damage. All right, Overmaster.
They lose the shotgun.
Okay, so Glasshopper can pick up a Tangelos, but at this point you can force through 4 points of damage. That's just not going to be quite enough here.
Yeah, do you play the Tangelos and attack, or do you try to save it for a future turn when things might be a little better?
I think either way you're in a lot of trouble. Not trading Gunrunner for Vara is really going to come back to haunt Overmaster here, since at this point Show can attack and finish off the Gunrunner, which means we're going to get a second Vara hit, which means Tony G is going to go to almost unassailable 12 health.
Yeah, the spot would definitely be looking a lot better, because in the next turn, the Show would just attack. Okay, so we see no attacks. We see no Tangelos. The Overmaster doesn't want to expose it quite yet.
Another Scorpion, so those Scorpion traps have been hitting pretty nicely.
So I anticipate Tony will fire it off for 3. Not going to use all the power. They don't feel like they need to draw that many cards, but they critically got rid of the 2 units they needed to. Boost themselves up to 12. That's not a bad one. The Quarry hits a Hidden Road Smuggler. So now the Show's ultimate has been expended. Tangelos and Glasshopper get in.
So the show's over, yeah. But at this point, Tony G's still got to be feeling pretty good about their position. And at this point, you can also maybe just get like a Deep Forge plate and just go to town here.
In fact, that's the play we see, and I count 14, and the Overmaster has 14 health, putting them to 0.
All right, Tony G up a game here. All right, this is going to be a close one. Tony G pulling ahead of Praxis here, and got one more game standing between them and a Worlds qualification. Overmaster, of course, hoping to stop that from happening and force a game 3. Yeah, that matchup looks pretty close. I'm surprised you thought it was so heavily slanted in Praxis' favor.
I mean, every little thing happens early on in the game. We saw how big every Scorpion was. Every single unit that was in play.
They were all 1/1s, actually.
Every single unit that was in play on the Praxis side made such a big difference, because for a card like Vara, the ability to have something expendable to sacrifice to it to keep it from being a 5/6 deadly lifesteal can mean a huge difference for the Praxis' deck's ability to be able to remove it at all and continue to attack.
Yeah. Well, it's going to come down to some tight margins here. Game 2 is ready, so let's head on down. Alrighty. Tony G here up a game in our top 4 here. And the Overmaster starting with a turn 2 Teacher of Humility here with a Glasshopper back in hand. And this is a reasonable start for the Overmaster here. Tony G does have that torch though, so the Teacher of Humility won't be hitting it. You always look for those free wins, but they're not always there.
For the Overmaster, they're going to be having a lot of Darias this game. The Glasshopper is going to draw one because one was already pledged this game. They've already drawn one, and Daria is a pretty tough threat for the Winchester deck to deal with. It's not vanquishable. It's not torchable. Fortunately for Tony G, they do have a pretty decent card against it in Statuary Maiden. Similarly, that 2/4 Deadly Body is hard for Praxis to deal with. So we'll see which player can leverage these deadly 4-drops better coming up in the next few turns.
One of the things that Daria is lacking and the Overmaster would like to find is other units that are a threat, because Daria does a lot better when you already have some decent stats in play, and so it looks like the Overmaster might have to settle for kicking things off with just a Daria, and then the second Daria coming back and using that amplify to good effect.
Shugo Standard is such an amazing combo with Daria. The ability to give Overwhelm, combining with Deadly and Berserk, and that temporary +4/+2 can deal a ton of damage. Now, I love the mind games that we're going to see this game. Tony G did not go and grab Harsh Roll like they did in Game 1 with their Smuggler. So if you're the Overmaster, that's got to be super on your mind that a Harsh Roll might be coming, but we just know it's not.
All right, here comes another Glasshopper. Overmaster can play a second Daria as well. That first Daria can also get in, but there is that Smuggler. This might be a turn for that Shugo tactic play that you were talking about.
Yeah, I think starting off with just an attack with the Daria berserking is fine, and then you can see how things develop in terms of where the blocks are. Because yes, you don't really want to trade the Daria with just the Red Canyon Smuggler. If you're gonna have to trade the Daria, you'd much rather it be with the Statuary Maiden because of how much that's gonna press attacks for the rest of the game.
All right, here comes a Berserk Daria. Tony G makes kind of the obvious on-the-board block with Red Canyon Smuggler, and our prediction is that we see a Shugo tactic.
It just represents an incredible amount of damage.
Yeah.
Only 1 point needs to go on the Smuggler. The 6 rest overwhelms through, and the same thing on this one. So no matter what Tony G does, they're going to be dropping down to the 12 to 13 range.
All right, looks like Statuary Maiden jumps in the way, but this drops Tony G down to 13. And then here is where that trick you talked about is gonna come into effect. If Overmaster doesn't play Daria, it's because of Harsh Roll. Overmaster reaches the, I believe, correct conclusion that I got to put something else on the board. And luckily for Overmaster, there's no Harsh Roll coming. In fact, Tony G's not really getting a lot of value out of this Vanquish that they went to go fetch, given how few 4-strength units the Overmaster has drawn this game.
Let's see how much patience the Overmaster has right now. They could go for a line with like Glasshopper, play a Daria, amplify at once, but that is going to play into the Harsh Roll that they now just picked up. So Glasshopper picks up, I believe we're now looking at the 4th Daria of the game. Glasshopper is just so great at allowing you more access to your pledge units, even once you've pledged them.
And Overmaster looking to whether they want to play Daria, amplify into like the Glasshopper. Looks like they're just going to settle for attacking first and seeing what Tony G does. Tony G takes the trade with the Daria, and we're in the same position now. Overmaster now keeps back the Daria. So, again, really good predictions, both sides. Overmaster played to the board when there wasn't a Harsh Roll, didn't play to the board when there was. Good reading of what Tony G has going on. The only problem that the Overmaster is facing is they have got 3 1-power units in play. That's just not going to get the job done.
Wow. So Tony G doesn't pull the trigger on the Harsh Roll, and the Overmaster grabs an Amaranth Stinger. So that's a real nice play. They don't have to expose any more Darias to the board, and they're going to get to load up with some Scorpions. But an Annihilate means the Amaranth Stinger goes down, so we're only going to see an attack for 3 this turn. Still, they are dropping lower.
And the Overmaster, again, not playing Daria here. Tony G kind of forced to Harsh Roll, so Overmaster really getting paid off for their patience. Unfortunately, losing 3 different units that provide power, so at this point the Overmaster is not able to play their Darias for quite as cheaply, but still, Daria hitting the board here and can be buffed by the second Daria if once they run out of Berserk too.
This Daria is going to crash in for 6, so wow. So Tony G's going to drop down to 6 with the use of this Display of Ambition in there. I think you're just going to see a Red Canyon Smuggler come out.
Okay, Overmaster
conveniently does block well.
Overmaster is a Torch or Shugo Standard short of winning the game. Oh, Amaranth Stinger. Okay, that could drop Tony G down to 4 and give the Overmaster some Scorpions. Looks like that's the plan. Amaranth Stinger both come in. Berserk forcing the block here on the Daria. Tony G's down to 4, 5 Scorpions in deck.
Could really use a Scorpion right off the top here.
That would be amazing for the Overmaster. Misses. Tony G draws Seek Power. It's actually a pretty good draw given the circumstances. And gets to slam Rizon, which does have lifesteal. This is, once again, the Overmaster is going to be in the frustrating position of getting Tony G down to such a low health total. And then Tony G's going to get to slam Deforged Plate on that Rizon and just completely turn the tables.
The Daria will do a lot of work, though, at helping mitigate that because of the Berserk and because of the Deadly on both units if they go in that direction. Man, this is such a critical point for the Overmaster. If they play the Moonstone Vanguard, it sets up an amazing turn for Tony G of Deep Forge Plate plus Vanquish. And unfortunately, they are going to be playing right into it.
Yeah, I don't think even the Scorpion Trap can really can do a whole lot to alter the outcome. Tony G is going to get to hit for 10 in the air here with Rizon. Overmaster now is in a really tough position. That Rizon is just representing so much damage. The fifth Daria of the game, not going to do enough to stop Rizon from just crushing the Overmaster here. So this is looking tough. All right, that Amarin Stinger gets Deadly and Berserk, both units heading in. I mean, Purify is I guess the best you can do against this Rizon. One of the weaknesses Praxis have is just large stats, and Tony G has that in abundance.
The Overmaster in the tank about whether or not they want to utilize the Berserk right now or try to save it up for a pump spell in the future. They decide it's better to hope a Shugo standard provides something for them. I just don't even know if that's going to be enough because they have to get this Rizon off the board right away. It's going to put them to 2 right now. And if they don't come up with a merchant to be able to grab a Purify out of the market, I believe that's they probably have Sandstorm Titans. So looking at merchant or Sandstorm Titan for the Overmaster. Zuberia Outlands Warlord is not it. They're going to just alpha right now, but it's looking bad.
Yep, Overmaster going for a last-ditch effort here. Tony G is going to end this game at 26 health. No, sorry, 24 health thanks to that Berserk attack. Plays Zuberi, sits there and Tony G wastes no time by attacking with Rizon here for lethal. We have our finalists. Tony G is qualified for Worlds. Our finalists will be Manu S against Tony G. Congratulations to the Overmaster for making it to the top 4. Another really good finish. Ended up just a little bit short, a point short, really in this entire match. But Tony G is going to be the recipient of our second invite given out today. And we've got ourselves a finals, and it's quite a good one.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. Tony G and Manu S are 2 of the best deck builders in the world at Eternal. I've seen their decks popping up on Eternal Warcry and Reddit for the last couple of years now. So to see them square off with thousands of dollars at stake, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And when we come back for break, we're actually going to have a preview of the only site in Dark Frontier. So definitely stay tuned for that.
All right, we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay, so we can show that last preview card at the end of the broadcast. Alrighty, welcome to the finals of the Eternal Championship Qualifier. I'm Luis Vargas here with Andrew Beckstrom, and we are going to be covering the finals. The players are playing for $2,000 for first, $1,000 for second. Both these players, Manu S and Tony G, have earned a qualification to Worlds based on their finals appearance. So we've got a very high stakes match, but I think, once again, the tournament structure is such, once you make it to the finals, you feel pretty good about your spot, and then you got to play for an additional $1,000, which sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see who comes out on top. We got a great matchup on our hands. Winchest Control versus Stone Scar mid-range, a classic battle that it'll be fun to see who comes out on top.
But before we get there, we've got a preview card I've been ready to show all day. Like, I'm really looking forward to this.
You need to brace yourselves for this one. This is one of the most majestic sights in all of Myria. It's a real monument to the ages. I hope you're ready for Thud Rock's masterwork.
So, this is in fact the Yeti Mount Rushmore. We've got Thud Rock's masterwork. It's a site. It's only got one durability. Gives all your Yeti and snowmen. Remember, Thud Rock does make snowmen. +1/+1, and it's got Thud Rock's agenda. Jump kick, +1/+1, flying it fast. Snowball, of course, 1 damage, and then fend off another new card. So this is like kind of a 2-for-1 preview. 1 cost fast spell, stun an enemy unit, scout. So Thud Rock's masterwork also is very cheap. It only costs 3.
Yeah, does a great job at defending itself with the fend off and the snowball.
Defending itself.
Yes.
And it, like you said, it snowballs really, really well if you get it out early, and then I guess it jump kicks or something too.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see. Obviously, this is going to be great in Yeti strategies. We all know how good one Party Seeker is, and yeah, we've got Thud Rock Arctic Artisan on the screen. It's the Thud Rock you know and love that this site will be producing once its agenda is complete. But the card does a lot, even if you aren't playing with a dedicated Yeti strategy. Getting a snowball and a scout, and you might be able to proc a renown like on a Hojin or on one of your other renown units with the jump kick. So definitely
also,
a lot going on with this card.
Jump kick on Thud Rock is quite the combo. Send Thud Rock to the air and hit your opponent, get your snowman, which they both have +1/+1. Just works beautifully. Also, cards like jump kick are really powerful if you have a cause to play them. Mostly they're not quite enough for ranked, but when you get to subsidize them by putting them with a bunch of other powerful effects, it's really nice to have access to it.
Yeah, and this card can break open games in a moment. Things might be locked up, but then a timely stun or sending one of your Yetis flying through the air, which is a really fun thing to do, can just break a game wide open. You might be able to finish your opponent off, kill a site, you name it, a proc and infiltrate. Lots of great stuff going on with this card. So it'll be dropping this Thursday. It is the only site in Dark Frontier. We've loved what sites have done to the game, and our ability to get to show you off some of the coolest locations in the world of Myria. And we could think of no place better to show than Thud Rock's masterwork itself. So hopefully you guys will crack one in your booster packs come Thursday. But for right now, it's time to get going. We're going to have an exciting finals matchup between Tony G and Manu S. And really just buckle in, because we're going to get to see some really high skill level Eternal. Both of these players consistently finishing high up on our ranked leaderboard. And they've brought great decks to the table. Some similar cards, some different cards. We got a 2-faction deck versus a 3-faction deck.
Yeah, and both these decks are pretty good at playing the long game. A lot of attrition back and forth. Tony G's FGS decks could be a little better. Display of Ambition really does give you legs. Show also does kind of give you this never-ending flow of cards. But the Praxis deck with a bunch of Glasshoppers and
we got Winchest versus
we switched to Stone Scar. The Stone Scar deck is a little bit more aggressive, so it's trying to go a little bit under. And we've got Manu S with their teched out Stone Scar list playing against Tony G on FGS, which actually looks like the players are ready. So let's head down and watch the game in action. Alrighty, welcome to the finals here. Manu S playing Stone Scar and curving nicely. We've got, he's going to do a lot of shaking down here. And Tony G actually redrew down to 6 here, which is not where you want to be against Shakedown.
No, but unfortunately the Shakedown, the Nightfall, will help mitigate some amounts of the redrawing down to 6. Yeah, that second one, picking up a Smuggler that they can use to convert one of these powers into something useful. A Zhou on top that they're happy to see. So despite not having any earlier interaction, they'll keep that Zhou. On Manu S's side, they could follow up with another Shakedown or just deploy a Black Hole War Leader.
And, from the information Manu S has, there's no reason not to just play the War Leader, because Display of Ambition does very little at this point in the game. But that Hidden Road Smuggler, a pretty good draw for Tony G, getting to swap something out for, looks like a Harsh Rule here.
Fortunately for Manu S, they've got a lot of value-generating cards. These Ristas in their hand are going to draw a Shadow Sigil when played. The Black Hole War Leader doesn't get blocked by the Hidden Road Smuggler, and neither does the Rista. So they're going to be able to continue making progress in this game without overly exposing themselves to a sort of a back-breaking harsh roll. You see Tony G electing not to chump block. The Black Hole Warder gets in, pumps itself up to a 3-4. Not quite killable by Display of Ambition yet, but it's getting there. But it'll be inspiring units for the next couple of turns.
Tony G kind of content to just use treasure troves and quarries and set up that harsh rule here over the next turn or so.
Just continuing to generate card advantage, making up for this redraw to 6 like that. Stone Scar Banner is a pretty fantastic draw. It makes it so that the Champion of Chaos is up to a 5/5 Deadly Overwhelm now.
And so note that Manu S only, when casting Shakedown, only sees Display of Ambition and Treasure Trove. Doesn't see the cards that Shakedown can't take.
They don't see a Vanquish,
And
so it seems really likely that that a Harsh Roll is in hand, especially once it's chump blocked. So do you even bother playing out Arista here? I think I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think Manu S deciding whether they want to cast another Shakedown. They're kind of losing on Nightfall if they do that, because if you proc Nightfall twice in the same turn, it doesn't extend it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Manu S, despite having a bunch of power open, is just like, well, I really don't need to do anything else here.
Their board is well advantaged.
Also, that chump block's extremely suspicious.
Yes.
If Manu S didn't already have enough reasons to suspect Harsh Rule, that gives them an additional reason there.
They're really in the tank, though, on this one.
Well, this is a pivotal turn of the game. If that Harsh Rule's face up, do you play Rista? The answer is probably not, despite the summon ability.
The big advantage that playing Rista gives you is it gives you the ability to guaranteed have the 5th power, so you can go Vara plus Shakedown in the post-Harsh Roll world.
And it looks like Manu is just going to go ahead and Shakedown, take that Treasure Trove, and just pass the turn. Tony G, I think, going to be obliged to cast Harsh Rule here.
That's the only Harsh Roll within Tony G's 80, so to speak. So Manu S knows he can pretty safely commit the rest of the resources to the board without getting wrathed again this game.
All right, so here comes Vara, or potentially Rista if Manu S really wants to get a power drop, but it is really tempting to get Vara down when there's no opposing units. So Manu S slams Vara. Tony G on, he bricked on this turn, and it's going to end up, not having a very efficient turn, which is kind of deadly when you're playing such a slow deck.
Tony G did see a kill card for the Vara in a Display of Ambition on top. So that'll alleviate a little bit of pressure, but a second Vara coming down means the hits are going to keep on coming, even despite that Display of Ambition.
Yeah, and these Varas are really working Tony G over here. That Torch not doing much. Display of Ambition can take out a Vara. Could bring back the Hidden Road Smuggler, but just taking out Vara seems a little cleaner here. We'll see what Tony G does. Also could just play Show, but you're so soft to something like Desecrate if you do.
Tony G evaluating all of the options. They've got a Show ready to go in a couple of turns. But they'll just... Oh, wow, they're going for this line. Redrawing.
All right, they're getting Hidden Road Smuggler. They're going to play Smuggler, and then they're going to pick up a Vanquish. So that was a really convoluted way to end up killing a Vara here.
So if you're Manu S, you've got a couple ways to play this turn. You can play double Rista, Rista plus Desecrate, or just play a Statuary Maiden. You see them opting for the Rista to start, a Desecrate to ensure that they get in and get Tony G nice and low. Now they see that response window pop up. They know the Torch is coming. Rista immediately gets torched.
But this drops Tony G to 1, making any other Nightfall or Torch just completely lethal. Tony G, well, has a good comeback.
That draw does a ton of work.
Okay, so Vara into Vanquish actually is going to put Tony G
Amazing.
into a spot where he's not just dead.
So Manu S selects not to sacrifice the Vara, meaning a removal spell is just straight lethal. I'm going to Flame Blast.
And there goes Flame Blast. Manu S now actually wasting no time. Flame Blasting Tony G and putting himself up a game here in the finals.
Yeah. Well played by Manu S. Had a bunch of different lines that they could take over the last couple turns of that game and did a great job of not overly exposing themselves to Harsh Roll. And yeah, the Stone Scar deck's got a ton of reach. And while the Wind Chest deck does have some lifesteal and other ways to gain health, They don't have a ton of it, and you know what? The Stone Scar deck's pretty good at disrupting it. They've got kill cards for Risen and for Vara, so this is not going to be an easy one for Tony G to pull out.
No, Tony G just can't fall so far behind, and like we kind of discussed earlier, you don't really feel safe against Stone Scar when you're at like 12, because they have just so many big 6-7 point increment damage spells, and it could have been Flame Blast, could have been Torch, could have been a million things that particular game, but it just shows when you're at a low health total against Stone Scar, it's really hard to rest on your laurels.
Yeah. For Tony G's side, the things that they're looking for, not too dissimilar. They're just hoping to have cheap interaction, get the Black Hole War Leaders off the board, and hopefully they can stabilize at a life total that allows them to do things like cash in those Display of Ambitions for 2 cards.
Yeah. Alrighty, it looks like game 2 is ready, so let's head back down to the match. Welcome to our Eternal Championship Qualifiers Finals. Manu S up a game here. Stone Scar facing off against Tony G on FJS. And Manu S, pretty solid curve here. Crest allows deploying the Argenport Instigator into either Champion of Chaos or an Extern Merchant, followed by Vara or Statuary Maiden, assuming all things go according to plan.
Yeah, the big thing if Manu S can just hit that 3rd power, which they do see on top, because you'd love to just carve out unit. Getting a Vara's Favor in there, just taking up your whole turn, not ideal. On the other side, Tony G just developing nicely, quarrying into a nice little 0-cost Defiance that, maybe will catch Manu S when he's not expecting it.
Oh, I love the 0-cost, fast spells. It is very sweet. Also, Defiance is nice because it only hits attackers, so it doesn't give you response windows unless there's actually something to do. A 0-cost Torch, you figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, we've all played those games against Heart of the Valder where it's like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Hidden Road Smuggler coming down for Tony G, picking up that Rakano banner just to smooth out the power because they didn't have anything rolled up for turn 4. On the other side, Argenport Instigator just is going to get Defiance at 0 cost, allowing Tony G a nice little 2 cards sort of in 1 turn situation. For Manu S, couple of their choice of 3 drops, and they're just going to opt for the depowered Champion of Chaos. Critical to note that it's going to get it could get torched right here, and if they waited till a turn when they had buffed it up high enough, that wouldn't be the case.
Well, Tony G swapping Rizon for Vanquish, and then, deploying that Torch as soon as possible. No reason to run that risk. So, Tony G looking pretty good. Seed of Chaos, a perfect draw if you're on the champion side of the field here. In fact, Champion of Chaos is still a pretty good draw, or a good drop, though. Manu S has to be suspicious that there's a Vanquish waiting.
Would make a lot of sense considering the ward position that Tony G's in. Also, it's plausible that they would have gotten Regent's Tomb, but I don't know that Regent's Tomb is doing its best work in this matchup where Manu S is playing a relatively low count of spells. They're not that high value, and most of the units could quickly outsize the Hidden Road Smugglers.
Is it time for a Flamestoker, do you think?
Luis, we'll let the players tell us when it's going to be time for a Flamestoker.
Okay.
Vanquish finishes off the Champion of Chaos. And it's critical for Tony G that they weren't able to get the Statuary Maiden down before they started killing all of Manu S's units, so they're not getting all of this cudgel value. They're now out of removal spells, and Manu S has got a hand of some pretty decent threats in Statuary Maiden, Vara, Extend Merchant.
Yeah, and that Merchant can get maybe even something that costs 6.
It is quite possible for the Winchest deck to get out units into play which are just bigger than Infernus's. Yeah. So keep that in mind. You could just get into a spot where you're just chump attacking into a 5/6 VAR every turn.
Also, Infernus against Statuary Maiden is not great.
Not great at all.
You just give them a cudgel and then another cudgel. So Manu S is going to lead with Statuary Maiden. And I actually like this quite a bit because now when you play Vara next turn, if Tony G sacrifices one of these smugglers, which would have been appealing otherwise, you go ahead and get a cudgel.
Power off the top for Manu S. What are their choices right now in the market for this Ixtun Merchant? So there's that Flame Blast that they could get that could just use down the road to kill off the Statuary Maiden. That looks pretty appealing to me.
It certainly is. The biggest issue is what happens if Tony G top decks a removal spell, kills one of your units, and then buffs something right away. You end up quite a bit behind if you spent your turn trying to get Flame Blast going. And Manu S offers the Statuary Maiden trade there, and it's just going to deploy Vara's Favor to blink for one and get it in.
Tony G elects not to sack a Hidden Road Smuggler to the Vara, knowing that, well, we'll just create a cudgel that would give it +2/+2 anyway.
All right, here comes a second Statuary Maiden. We've got quite the quite the showdown here, and let's see what Ixon Merchant can do to kind of break this parity.
Yeah.
To swap. What is that? That appears to be a Flamestoker.
It does appear to be a Flamestoker. I question how this is going to play out for for our friend here. We see Statuary Maidens flying all over the place, so one's off the board. Maybe the second Ixon Merchant will do the responsible thing and get a Flame Blast to kill a Statuary Maiden.
Yeah, there it goes. I guess if you kill a Statuary Maiden, then that Flamestoker really
then
gets going.
Then it might be Flamestoker o'clock. I'll grant you that.
All right, Stone Cudgel hitting, and Manu S looks like, the first game Manu S really just kind of aggroed Tony down to a low health total and then used Burn to finish him off. At this point, it looks like Tony G, despite having tons of health, Manu S is just going to win an attrition game here unless Tony draws, show or display of ambition very quickly.
It turns out it is Flamestoker o'clock. The first Infernus comes down, but before it dies, I think we'll see one of these fire damage spells pointed at that Statuary Maiden to ensure no more cudgels are created for Tony G. The question is, do you rather throw the Flame Blast or the Obliterate at it?
My inclination is probably to Obliterate here, just because Flame Blast can do so much more damage later, and it looks like Manu S agrees. In comes that Infernus. Vara could trade for both of the smugglers. Oh, I don't hate getting Vara in there. Of course, you might get counterattacked is the issue.
You might get counterattacked, and you would have to double block with Ixon Merchant if you want to take down the Hidden Road Smuggler. Or you could just set up for big attacks in the future. You are going to be gaining 5 every time this Vara gets in there. So now Manu S is up to 24.
Uh-oh, Tony G, just, power after power.
Well, that power wasn't the worst power they could drop because it did get them up to the 4th Fire Influence for a Zhou off the top. So we'll see if they can make that happen.
Well, at this point, Manu S is 1 point, no, not even 1 point short. This is exact lethal. Desecrate, hit for 13, Flame Blast you for 5.
Incredible.
I mean, just like that, we've got a champion. Manu S attacks for 13, Flame Blasts Tony for exactly lethal, and Manu S just sweeps the top 4, sweeps the finals. Did not drop a game in the last couple rounds, and has emerged a champion. Congratulations to Manu S, winning $2,000, an invite to Worlds, and probably giving him some ammunition to talk about why Stone Scar's great. I'm sure we're in for a video and/or some combination of articles. Yeah. That's one of the awesome things about winning a tournament is talking about how you got there. So, congratulations to Manu S. Congratulations to Tony G for qualifying for Worlds. Can't feel too bad to walk away with $1,000 and an invite. I think that Tony G, by any estimation, had an extremely successful weekend.
Yeah, kudos to both players. Really exciting tournament. And Dark Frontier comes out this Thursday. And who knows what kind of cards will just pop up out of nowhere when we get to Thursday.
So, yeah, we're really excited to kind of show you these new cards. And thanks again for watching, everyone. Congratulations to everyone who made it to the top 64, got to play today. We saw some awesome matches. We saw some awesome decks. And we will be back here in just a couple weeks covering the ECQ Showdown. Until then, thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you next time.